The Football Show
with Paddy Power, fueling the mischief in the beautiful game. Gamble responsibly. See Dunlewy.net.
I'm prepared to do anything I can to play for my country again.
Do it then. What about your start to the game?
It wasn't bad, was it?
Why should an honest answer be a mistake?
How can a modern day manager not have a mobile phone?
Why should he?
Well, the Premier League is back and we have an off-the-ball football special over the next 3 hours with Paddy Power fueling the mischief in the beautiful game. Coming up between now and 4 o'clock, I'll be in the company of former Republic of Ireland captain Kenny Cunningham. We'll be joined by former Celtic and Scotland boss Gordon Strachan, and we'll talk to former Liverpool captain Phil Thompson about the first weekend of the Premier League and the games coming up this weekend, including our huge live and exclusive game on Off the Ball this coming Sunday, when Kenny will be alongside Nathan Murphy for commentary on Chelsea against Liverpool. Then after 4 o'clock, we have a very special edition of the Crappy Quiz, and we will have an interview with Wes Brown, who has sat down with David Meyler after 5 o'clock. We also have a Paddy Power half hour coming up, where we'll be talking to Gary Breen and Paddy Power himself to look forward to all the football this coming weekend. As I mentioned, Kenny Cunningham is here with me. Kenny, how are things?
All good, Will.
Decent first weekend of football back that we had. Your game was Leicester against West Brom. What did you make of
Seems
West
like
Brom's
about a month ago.
It only feels like a month ago since the game's finished, whatever last weekend.
Had so many games every day. It's a funny little stagnated approach to the season. It's a bit odd, like looking forward to it so much, and to be almost being teased with the games, kind of drip fed the games day in, day out. But yeah, it's great to have the season underway, and yeah, a couple of standout games already. I wouldn't necessarily say the West Bromwich Albion Leicester game was one of them, but I was impressed with Leicester, obviously missing some key players. Took a bit of time to grow into the game, but it was kind of a very kind of professional, efficient performance from them. It was a comfortable victory, exactly what Brendan Rodgers would have wanted. First game of the season.
Yeah, well, that was one of the teams going up into the top flight. Leeds made their return after 16 seasons back into the Premier League on Saturday. They played out a cracker, probably game of the weekend, their 4-3 defeat against Liverpool. We're joined by a former English Football League winner with Leeds in Gordon Strachan. Gordon, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon to you, Will, and good afternoon to you, Kenny. How are you?
Yeah, look, I think we're doing all right. Kenny got dragged in off the beach to chat to us, so he has to slightly get over that, but I think he's happy enough to join us for a bit of football chat. Gordon, Leeds back into the Premier League. I mean, one of the real giants of English football, almost 2 decades away was really too long for your old club, wasn't it?
Yeah, and the last month people are asking me, what do you think of Leeds being back in the Premiership? And I did say that there's teams that come in and out of the Premiership. You don't really notice they've been there. They don't really do anything exciting. They come and make up the numbers, disappear, and we go, yeah, they play some nice football, blah, 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 very nice, see you later, back to the Championship. But I did say when Leeds come along that the world will be watching their games because they're one of the giants of the Premier League or English football. And the fact is they've got so many rivalries with most clubs. Chelsea Leeds is huge. I want to watch it. Leeds, Manchester United, absolutely huge in the calendar for football fans around the world. And I said that the crowds would add to it, home and away. But what I didn't, and I knew they'd put a good performance in at the weekend, but I really didn't think they could play as well as that. That was easily the best performance I've ever seen with a team that's just been promoted in the top league. Maybe people argue with that, but that was a game that, considering it wasn't a crowd, that you couldn't take your eyes off it, and the energy come from the players to the screen, to into my household, and I think that's what everybody got from it. And we're all sitting there looking at it, going, "How can this manager be this brave?" Because 99.9 managers that go to Liverpool would be probably saying, how do we stop Liverpool playing? Can I fill in spaces there? Can I fill in areas there? Do I play 3 at the back? Do I play 5 at the back? Do I play 6 at the back at times? No, what does Bielsa do? He goes and attacks and he goes and closes down players. And at times, Liverpool back 4, it was 4 against 4. They have never played against 4 against 4 for many a year. And to be that brave, it's not on my radar, that one, to be that brave.
Yeah, because I suppose a lot of people focus on
performance.
A lot of people kind of focus on Van Dijk's mistake, Gordon, at the weekend, which allowed in for the Bamford goal. But part of the reason that Van Dijk makes that mistake is that Bamford and the other attacking players on the Leeds team are pushing right up on Liverpool and making sure they don't have an easy out ball back to Alisson every time.
Yeah, I also think that Liverpool, because we can go into later on how Liverpool scare 11 daylights out of teams. That, as I said, they're very rarely used to that. Not that just even the physical pressure. It was the mental pressure, I think. I don't think Liverpool would have been expecting that, their back four, their centre-backs, to be under that kind of pressure where they're thinking all the time, where's the next move coming from? So it was a physical and, I think, a mental pressure that led to that. And to be fair, we're allowed to give the big fella one mistake every, 5 years. But if you set that sort of standards when you make a mistake, then people will have a look at that. But I just think it surprised Liverpool, because I don't think anybody's taken them on at their own game. Other teams might have beaten them doing other things, they're playing balls forward, crashing into their centre halves. Man City might do it another way. They play in their own style, their own way of playing. But I think it was the first time I've seen anybody taking Liverpool on at their own game. High energy, closing down, being brave on the ball when you get it back, being able to get through the first wave of defence and then go and attack. So I think that surprised everybody at Liverpool. I think it surprised everybody who watched the game, because we knew Leeds could do that in the Championship. But when you come to take on the best team in Europe, arguably, then you need to be a real brave manager to do that. And also, you've got to be a manager that's convinced these players that you can do it. Because I've seen many a player lining up against Liverpool thinking, I'd rather be somewhere else than here today, because I know my physical and mental strength's got to be tested. But the Leeds players took them on at that. So that was refreshing. Whether a lot of managers out there can do that because of the physical state of the players, or the mental strength of himself as a manager, I doubt it very much.
I wonder as well, Gordon, when it comes to Liverpool this season, we can chat to Phil Thompson maybe about this a bit in around half an hour's time, but when it comes to Liverpool, I wonder how much of a loss crowds are going to be from Anfield for them, at least in the early stage of the season, because typically, had that been the first game of the year, Liverpool's first home game since being crowned champions last year, it would have been a packed and a rocking Anfield last Saturday evening. Instead, a team arrives to an empty stadium. It has to be a little bit of a leveller compared to going to Liverpool in a normal time.
Well, you could say that, but the way Liverpool started, I mean, really, you wouldn't have said that you'll need a crowd for that start, because I've seen Liverpool a few times, and yes, they can start like that, and sometimes they don't. So, for the manager and the players, they couldn't have started any better, I don't think, in terms of pressure on Leeds and getting at them and making chances. But that didn't, as I get back to it, didn't scare Leeds. They went, okay, they might get chances, but we're going to the other end. So I really don't know. I've got what you're saying about the crowd. Yeah, I've got what you're saying. But on the other side, and Kenny will tell you, being a football player, that they usually give you 10 minutes, home crowds, and they're behind you. Way, this is great, wonderful, here we go. But after 10 minutes, you've no scored or no had an attempt at goal. It's, oh dear, what's happening here? It's one of the days. So you can feel it for the crowd on the negative side. So there's a positive and negative to that. And some players would have a problem with negative, not at Liverpool, I would imagine, because they're all mentally strong. But saying that, because it's quite strange, actually, negative energy can actually make you play better at times. So, as I said, it's a question that might be answered, that one. But the fact is they've won a game. Again, they've won, with or without the crowd. And it was just said to Liverpool, are you going to make this amount of chances before the game starts? And I think they had about 20-odd chances, 22, 23 chances. If you say, right, you've got to make 23, you'd be happy with that as a manager. Really happy. Also, are you happy to get into these scoring positions? There were one pass of great moves at times. So I don't think Liverpool can look at themselves and go, well, it's the crowd. They won the game. They've made 20-odd chances, it was similar to the, I think, Newcastle-Liverpool game years ago, and that was with a crowd. And you're getting a 4-3 without a crowd. So it's a question that's very hard to get answered, to be honest with you.
Kenny, I'll ask Gordon about Liverpool in a moment, but your thoughts on Liverpool still the team to beat this season, or do you reckon this is going to be a Man City year? What do you think at the outset of the year?
No, I think Liverpool are still the team to beat. I think they showed up well from an attacking point of view. In terms of their attacking threat, individual players high up the pitch. I didn't think Firmino had his best game, to be honest with you, but Salah looked particularly sharp. I just felt maybe Leeds, maybe a bit of a template there for other teams in terms of any potential frailties in the Liverpool team. Seems a strange thing to talk about, the weaknesses in the Liverpool team off the back of how what they've achieved last season. But even last season, I always felt as if in terms of that defensive line, keep a very high line and maintain that. It's not just a case of keeping the line, but they maintain that line at all costs. I think it's an opportunity for opposition teams to look to play in behind, but not too many teams do. But Leeds certainly did that. Gordon alluded to it there. Not only did they commit players high up the pitch, but they put the ball in behind Liverpool very quickly. Actually, it's similar to Liverpool in some respects. Liverpool don't hang about in terms of getting the ball back to front of their front three. They're actually reasonably direct at times. I thought Leeds were as well. When they had the opportunity to put the ball in behind, they did. They got Liverpool on the back foot. The Harrison Force goal, great diagonal ball from Davis in behind Trent Alexander-Arnold. The defensive line didn't recover in unison together. They took advantage. Even the Bamford goal you spoke about, yes, it was a mistake from Van Dijk, but at least they're putting the ball over his shoulder, asking questions of them, making them defend, and not everything's in front of Van Dijk and Gomez, where they're very comfortable. Leeds actually asked them questions in behind and down the sides, and that defensive line was very fragmented for the majority of that game. So that will give a little bit of encouragement to opposition teams in terms of any potential weakness in that Liverpool team, but they're very strong mentally. Gordon alluded to there, they're absolutely relentless. You just sense if the hunger's still there amongst the Liverpool players. That's probably why Klopp hasn't kind of reinforced the squad. He's happy with the dressing room. He's happy with the attitude and the mentality of the players. And yes, I still think they're the team to beat.
Gordon, what do you think about Jurgen Klopp's decision? I know we're in the middle of a pandemic, so people to be careful about the money anyway, but he said it was very much his call not to have big upheaval after winning the league last season. He wanted to go with roughly the same group as last season. You've had 40 days or so between the two campaigns. Is there a chance that this Liverpool squad, given that they played roughly the same 20 or so players last season, that fatigue could become an issue for them this year?
It could, and you said the same with Leeds, I suppose. But we thought that, but it never materialised the lack of fitness. They keep going because there's an energy you get from winning. There's an adrenaline energy. It's funny that usually the teams who are getting beat talk about fatigue. And I don't think fatigue will be in the vocabulary of any Liverpool coach at all. I think the word fatigue, Sir Alex Ferguson was the same. If you mention fatigue, you're liable to get dropped the next game. I think if you speak to Mark Bosnich about that, he went to pre-season tour and said they're getting tired, too many games, may never played. So there's a thing with the top sides that it's no fatigue. It's part of the deal. When you're a top player, you play week in, week out, and deal with it. Also, that Klopp sees what we don't see. He sees youngsters. He sees great young players. And if he thinks they're good enough and have got the mindset to join in with the team right away with this high tempo pressing, being good on the ball when you get it back, positive. He sees that in his young players. There's no need for him to go anywhere else to keep the media or keep some fans happy. That's the decisions you make as a manager. If he sees something that's 150 million and they decide that's going to definitely make Liverpool better, they will do something like that. They did it with Virgil van Dijk and the goalkeeper, right? Everybody's got, that's an awful lot of money for a goalkeeper. That's centre-half, you're paying 70 million for him. Now they're saying, what a deal that was. And what you've got to do is trust the manager. He sees what he's got behind the scenes and he looks at it. What's the point in bringing in somebody at 60 million who's just the same as a kid that can go on there? But I think Kenny was bringing about Liverpool's, the ball's going in behind. But I think the first goal was fantastic with Leeds. That was a diagonal ball getting in behind. That was fantastic. But that come from the fact that Leeds were brave enough on the ball to get on the ball and play. And also their other good moves come for counter-attack, where they've won the ball back. Instead of dismissing it, they were brave on the ball, beat one or two. Once you get past one Liverpool player, as a second one comes in, if you can beat two, then you're away. Because that's a defensive thing. Press with one, another one helps. If you can beat the two, then you're going right up the park. So I think we've got to we've got to stick with Jurgen because he's probably the best manager in the world. That's arguably the best manager, and you've got to trust him, which I think every Liverpool supporter and player, they believe in that man.
Away from the Premier League, Gordon, just want to ask you about the move that Shane Duffy has made. He's gone to Celtic on loan from Brighton for the year. And we'll see if he stays there beyond that. Gary Breen thought last weekend on Off the Ball this Saturday that maybe it might be a mistake from his point of view, that going to the SPL could be a regression. He could potentially pick up bad habits while he's in Scotland. What's your take on Duffy's decision to move north of the border then?
I think when I was at Celtic, Roy Keane wanted to join Celtic. And he came to us for 75% less than what he was on at Manchester United. Okay, he wasn't going to play at Manchester United again, but he could have went elsewhere. There's a thing about the club, if you support Celtic, just to play, get the strip on and be in front of the crowd, the whole thing. And what you got, no matter what happens, and I'm not sure, I hope it happens for Shane, that he plays in the Champions League. I don't know if any of you still have been to a Champions League night, a big game at Celtic Park. There's no better place. And I've been to Champions League nights at Man United, Liverpool. It's the best place you could play football. Yes, I agree with Gary on a lot of things Gary said. And that's unusual because you usually fight like cat and dog with manager and player. But I did like him. I really did like Gary. And I get on great with him now. He's worked with my son. He was good. And he was also a very good centre-half, by the way. I can see where he's coming from. But just to put in perspective, what Gary actually said, and he's had a lot of flack from people who've not even really listened to what he said. Because it's the usual thing in Scotland. If you give us stick, we're going to kill you. But we can give a stick to our own league. But don't anybody else give a stick. So what Gary was saying, there's a lot of truth in what Gary was saying. That he said that probably there wasn't a Premiership striker that Shane Duffy's got to face. Right? Now, then you get the people in the Scottish newspaper go, well, what about Edouard? Well, he's not going to face Edouard. He's on the same side as Edouard. You know, that's how much some people have thought about this. But Gary's right. There is times when he'll not be tested. Absolutely not be tested. It's like being a goalie in a great side where you're only called upon now and then to make the big decisions. And it's the same thing on Saturday. Now and then he was called upon to make big decisions in the game. He made them well. And I think he's also got to go, once the crowds get back and things like that, that battle with the old firm this year is something you want to be involved with as a football player, because when he goes head-to-head with Rangers and Celtic, the adrenaline excitement that's flowing is phenomenal. So he's got to get that, which he's never had before in anywhere else he's played. He'll get it with the Republic Island and big nights, but the head-to-head with somebody like Rangers is something you want to experience. So if you experience that, play for the club you supported, in Champions League football, European football, then there is a positive and a negative. Yes, he will be going to some places where he's playing on plastic pitches, which I detest, and they shouldn't be allowed, should be scrapped, give them away to some non-league team. And I know but the positives are well worth going through some of the negatives.
And I'd imagine, Gordon, on the final note, when it comes to this window for Celtic, they'll probably be happy to have Duffy in where they were short to cover at centre-back and probably needed a new starting centre-back anyway. If they can hold on to Edson Edouard until the second week of October, that makes it not the worst window for Celtic.
That'd be a good window, because they signed young David Turnbull, who's got to be a good player. They're still an outlook for a left-back. It's been a good window, and then in the real world, the Premier League, it's not much, but 12, 13 million. But Celtic have a problem. If Celtic want to guarantee that they're going to beat Rangers and do well in the Champions League, they have to pay. Look what Chelsea are paying, 240 million. So Celtic would have to pay 150 million to guarantee they're going to do all that. Guaranteed players. But if it doesn't work, then that's a club bankrupt. So Celtic will do what they do, as they have been doing for the last 15 years, buying people for 2 million, 3 million, 1.5, trying to create a right good football like they did with Wanyama, Dembele, Van Hooijdonk, all these players, Van Dijk. So that's what they do, Celtic. And so far they've been doing it well. So if you win 9 championships in the trot and about 15 in the last 17, then you're doing things right. But again, I still think they'll still try and look at a left-sided defender, I think, because Tierney, as you've seen recently, is a player that can play in many positions. Wing back, left centre back. So they got good money for Kieran, but I still think that they need a bit of presence and a left-sided defender.
Gordon, thanks a million for joining us on our Off the Ball football special.
No problem at all. You look after yourself, guys. Stay safe and healthy.
Cheers, Gordon.
And Gordon, all the best. I'll ask you about that, Kenny, as well, what you think about the Shane Duffy move then, because it's split opinion somewhat, but I think for a lot of Republic of Ireland fans, this big game against Slovakia is coming up. If he had stayed at Brighton, Graham Potter had made it fairly clear he wasn't his first choice to stay in that defence. It's better for him to get 8 or 9 games for Celtic now, particularly before that Slovakia game, isn't it? Yeah,
absolutely it is, yeah. I was a little bit disappointed at some of the kind of argument around Gary Breen's comments. You know, I got a little bit too aggressive from me. Gordon gave a very balanced argument there. I've read what Breeny said. I thought Breeny made some fair points. What he probably didn't speak about, wasn't spoken about enough, was the kind of emotional attachment some players have towards Celtic Football Club, some more than others, and that's clearly the case with Shane. You can hear it in his voice when he speaks about it. I think Gordon made a good point as well in terms of exposure to Champions League football. What's Shane's chances of actually experiencing Champions League football at Brighton or potentially another Premiership club outside the top 4 or 6? Very little, so don't underestimate that. Unfortunately, he won't have the experience of playing in front of a, Gordon spoke about the atmosphere Champions League night. Maybe for him, he may not experience that all season, and that'll be an absolute shame. But Breeny made some valid points which stand up in terms of how much he's going to be tested defensively. I'd probably flip that over a little bit as well. Or to make the argument, what Shane's going to have, he's going to be playing higher up the pitch, and he's going to have more touches in possession than he did at Brighton. So he's got an opportunity there for me in terms to work on maybe his productivity in possession of the football. He's going to have plenty of time to step forward, make passes, big diagonal switches, go and step into midfield, these type of things which maybe he hasn't had the opportunity to do during his career at Brighton. Defence-minded team, predominantly defend on the edge of their penalty box, and he's been great at that, but hasn't had too much opportunity in a Brighton jersey in a team which really dominates possession to get on the ball and really kind of sharpen up and maybe improve the other aspect of his game, and he will have an opportunity to do that at Celtic. So I think it's good and bad. I don't think anybody's a loser, really, in all honesty. I think everybody's a winner. Celtic will certainly will be delighted with him coming into the football club, as they'll be strengthened. I think Shane will be absolutely buzzing. He will get that competitive football week in, week out. We can argue in terms of what level, but for me that's not a huge argument. I just think mentally he'll be in a good place. He'll be enjoying his football, getting regular football, and an opportunity to sharpen that other part of his game, which we probably haven't spoken about for a long time in terms of his footballing ability on the ball. So I think it was actually a very good argument. It was a very interesting argument. I'm just disappointed that it ended up in people kind of throwing spears and verbally throwing bottles at each other. I didn't think that was needed. I just thought it was a very interesting argument, and there was a kind of merit on both sides, where everybody was saying. Also, I'd imagine if you're Shane Duffy, you grow up as a Celtic fan. They're on the cusp of potentially doing 10 in a row and doing that massive history, and they're chasing down Rangers' total titles. You've got the chance to be a member of that team that wins 10 in a row. No, absolutely, and that means everything. That means everything to people. And you can strip it back and say, "Oh, the level, would he not be better playing the Premiership?" Boom, boom, boom. But for some people, that's everything. And we're all different. Our makeup's different, emotions, the whole thing, what we value, what we don't. And Shane may feel, and we can all understand that a year at Celtic, and under those circumstances you've mentioned, 10 in a row, absolutely historic. He'll be remembered within as a member of that squad, like legendary status. And that means absolutely everything to people. So I can absolutely understand it. And like I said, I didn't think there was a right or a wrong argument. I thought it was a great discussion, and I thought it was an intelligent discussion that Breeny actually started off. And I thought Gordon gave a very balanced opinion in terms of the pros and minuses there. And I just feel as that everybody to a certain extent kind of gains from the move. When it comes to transfer business the clubs have done, in the Premier League, Chelsea have done most of spending. They've pretty much put 2 windows into one here with the way they've spent. 250 million spent so far. Could well go over that if they get 1 or 2 more players in the next couple of weeks. A lot of their attacking talent was on show last night with Kai Havertz and Timo Werner starting. They still have to wait for Ben Chilwell to get back to full fitness, and Thiago Silva was going through isolation after coming over from Paris, so they still have to fit somewhere potentially into that team. Chelsea have gone big this summer. Last year they were constrained by the transfer ban, and this time around Frank Lampard has been backed with money in the transfer market. Yeah, he certainly has, and pressure on his shoulders because of it, but I'm sure he'll kind of welcome that pressure. This is the situation he wanted to be in. They give him the opportunity to spend money and improve the squad in the areas he saw fit, and he's certainly done that. He got some great options high up the pitch. I was watching the game last night, but I didn't see it, if you take me point, because I had Alan Cawley and Stuart Bourne Rabbit in my ears. So I was actually looking at the screen, but I couldn't actually concentrate on it. But yeah, I know enough about the forwards. I've seen Wenger play often enough. His kind of versatility across the front lines. I'm a huge fan of Havertz. Still think his best position is more of a central midfield area. But the question marks are further down the pitch in terms of what impact Chelsea can make. All depends on what business even potentially do between now and the end of the transfer window. If another centre-half comes in, potentially centre midfield. A lot of talk, chatter around Kante leaving the football club. That's kind of strange. Inter Milan have been linked with him. Obviously something going on there. Behind the scenes. I don't think the balance is entirely right across the defensive line. Silva will come in. You would expect maybe his experience, although it is a calculated risk. He hasn't played in the Premier League. Yeah. You know, the fierce intensity, the energy. Yeah, exactly. Now, given that people say, he's such an experienced player, experience doesn't guarantee you in terms you're going to go in there and guarantee a 9 out of 10 performances. So there's an element of risk to that. But if he can solve that problem, and it might take him another year to solve those defensive issues. But in terms of when you look at them higher up the pitch, in terms of the quality which they have now, I mean, it's exhilarating from a Chelsea point of view.
Yeah, it changes expectation a little bit. We've got Phil Thompson, former Liverpool captain and 3-time European Cup winner with the Reds as well on the line. Phil, good afternoon to you.
Hi, you all right, Will? You all right, Ken?
All right, Phil, all good, thanks.
All right, mate.
We were chatting about Liverpool with Gordon Strachan a few minutes ago, Phil, and we were kind of saying Leeds pushed them right to the pin of their collar last Saturday. I guess the flip side to that is that Liverpool got the job done. You know, even though it wasn't a perfect performance by any means, Mo Salah scores the goals, they get the 3 points, and it's still the ideal start to the season.
Yeah, it's deja vu, isn't it? And it's you do look at it and you say, it's got away with it again. But I think it's like any of the top teams, and when you are you're on your game, I don't mean everything's going to come to plan. You find a way. And I think you scrape through. You do realise it's early days, the pre-season's not being right for anybody. So it's a little bit of a sort of toss-up how you're going to perform. Now, I wasn't surprised about Leeds' attitude, energy for it. They were up for it. I go back to the Friday night start of the season last year, Liverpool playing Norwich. It turned out for one. But if you looked at that game, the same thing again. Norwich could quite easily have got a draw out of it. They had a lot more chances than what Leeds did. We were a little bit loose on our finishing. And I would totally agree, couldn't argue, is that just sloppy defensively, which is, Van Dijk as well, which was and Joe Gomez for their first goal.
I wonder with Van Dijk as well, Phil, when it comes to it, like it was a lax moment from his point of view and a definite switch off. We've kind of praised him so much over the last couple of years where he'd control the ball with his shoulder and he'd look to turn and he wouldn't take the simple pass. Do you think it was just a case of maybe Van Dijk being a bit too confident in his ability this time round when it should have been just a ball coming over his shoulder, tap it back to the goalkeeper and turn around?
Listen, for the amount of mistakes what Virgil van Dijk's made over the few seasons what he's been with Liverpool, I'd accept that. We got away with it, you could say, by winning 4-3. But if Virgil goes through the rest of the season with one or two mistakes, but it doesn't cost you, they're the things that really start to worry you. When you make mistakes and it costs you points, that is when you have to have a real look at yourself and think, hold on a minute, am I taking things a little bit too easy? You've seen towards the end of Project Restart, towards the end of the season, once the league was wrapped up, you've seen very lax results from quite a number of players. When we look at Arsenal, when we played away, Alisson and Van Dijk, both making errors which they wouldn't normally do. You don't want that to creep into your game. And I think as a centre-back, I tell a lot of people this, you have to minimise your mistakes. The least mistakes you make, the higher up the table that you get. Kenny will know, being a defender, you keep making those mistakes, people latch onto it, and if I'm then as a coach, I'm saying, be ready, he will make a mistake, and you have to be ready to capitalise on it.
Kenny, when it comes to that mistake from Virgil van Dijk, we expect this to be, an absolute outlier. This is something that's happened, an absolute one-off. He very rarely makes any mistakes.
No, he doesn't. The best defenders make the fewest mistakes. It's as simple as that. And they are few and far between. And that kind of arrogance which he has, that kind of aura of invincibility, that kind of inflated ego, whatever you want to call it, it's well merited actually. He has been that good, but that was one of those decisions. It was just a poor decision. That was a high degree of difficulty what he tried to do. I mean, that ball has been there, defender going back towards you, and Phil has towards your penalty box. It's a diagonal ball. You kind of lose flight of it. You're trying to anticipate almost where it's going to land. So to take that on the outside of your kind of right foot and scoop it back over to your... I mean, you're talking like a high diver, triple pikes, that twist, that is the whole shebang, like. So, yeah, you just have to be a little bit careful. And Phil's right, you can't make too many of those mistakes. He has this aura of invisibility about him. He actually dominates opponents mentally. Almost they think, I just can't break this fella. You make too many of those mistakes, it gives opposition forwards a little bit of encouragement to get a little bit maybe braver in terms of maybe trying to take you on. But I wouldn't single out Van Dijk. For me, it was that Liverpool defensive line again. Phil spoke about the Norwich game last year, and it was very same in terms of that kind of high defensive line and kind of not dropping back into the space together in a kind of cohesive unit, just maintaining that high line and being susceptible to kind of people timing runs in behind and balls being played in behind. And Leeds did that. We spoke about O'Gordon. Leeds took the opportunity to put those balls early in behind. They got runners in there, and Liverpool were a little bit slow to drop into the space and cover that space. So that's just something I think can be rectified quite quickly.
And something that can happen easy, Kenny, as well, when you've got two defenders who push as high up as Liverpool do, like Robertson, and Trent Alexander-Arnold play so much of their football in the opposition half, that those gaps are going to be there unless the midfielders fill in nicely.
No, is the gap? Yeah, I've no problem with, and Phil know better than me, no problem with squeezing the pitch up the pitch and keep it compact. That's absolutely fine. But if an opposition teams are good enough to work the ball to somebody in space with his head up in possession, now he's looking beyond the Liverpool pack forward to hit balls in behind. That's the trigger when you've got to drop into the space. You've got to, as quick as you are, you've got to drop and protect the space in behind. If you're going to allow a pass, you're going to allow a pass into the centre forward's feet where you can still go and engage him. So it's just decision making for me. Yeah, squeeze as high as you can. That's all well and good, a high line. But there's times when you're going to have to drop into the space, and you're just going to have to be clever and to pick and choose your moments.
Listen, guys, this is the way Liverpool play. It's not just done this game on Saturday. It's been all the time. This is what Jurgen Klopp wants his team to play. Yes, people would say it's risky. We were doing this back in the 70s and 80s, playing a high line, but then your goalkeeper needs to be ready to actually sweep up. Everybody, where I would say now, you're looking, if you've got the problems, you have to have a solution. For me, when that ball goes, and you've seen it in the Charity Shield, in the very first seconds, when David Luiz got the ball, he was looking to try and play it over the top of the defence. Teams are talking about it. You have to do it because that works best. I think where we are just knocking off a little bit, we're watching the ball and it's going, it's now, they're playing the ball over the top, we're not reacting quick enough. As soon as that ball leaves his foot and you realise it's going into the space, you have to then be already, you have to hold your line because others are, and that's what we have to do. But as soon as we are reacting too slow. When Leeds got the one, fantastic control, comes inside, but I thought Joe Gomez gets across there too late, plus he's getting too close to Trent, and the one touch takes the two of them out. And I think as that ball's gone, boom, Joe Gomez is in a better position of supporting Trent Alexander-Arnold, sort of being between 5 and 10 yards away, because if he does go past him, I can get there. But the two of them ended up, because he doesn't react, the two of them are ending up 2 or 3 yards away from each other.
Phil, when it comes to motivation for Liverpool this season, I get the feeling that for the entire city, not just for the team and for the club, there was a massive weight lifted when the trophy was eventually lifted after a 30-year break a couple of months ago. Liverpool have had this kind of, under Klopp, look, they've had remarkable standards. They've gone to nearly 100 points the last 2 seasons. They've been to back-to-back European Cup finals 2 years ago. They went to a Europa League final before that. But will the motivation be as strong, do you think, for Liverpool this season to try and retain the Premier League as that desire would have been there to finally get their hands on it last season?
See, well, this is where people say, is this the best Liverpool team that there's ever been? It's close, but you have to do it season in, season out. In the last 10 years, there's only been Manchester City who's won back-to-back titles. That's how hard it is in the Premier League. It comes down to motivation. self-motivation, how you can drive. You have to have leaders in your camp who are making sure, looking people in the eye. We have to quote, go again. And people say, well, shouldn't that always be the case? It's not. We're all different. Kenny will know, being in the dressing room, looking people and going, he's not up for this. Going out between 5 and 10 minutes before kick-off, when they've come back in, you're going, you look people in the eye. So you've got to be self-motivated. Then you have to have your teammates, like your Henderson and Milner. We need to have this right today. And then your staff come in to play. Jürgen, not just Jürgen, but as the army of people that they have behind them, ensuring that they have this mentality that you go, and you can't do it for 1 or 2 games. Greatness comes from doing it over the 38 games, going again, taking what down that might come around the corner and go again. And it doesn't come easy. People think, they're getting paid these fortunes. It is still to motivate yourself. And I think that is the only time this team will really be total greatness, is if they go again and go again. Not, they don't have, but they're up there. And I think they'll be challenging Manchester City for the title. I'd still tip Liverpool to win it. I do think we're that good.
Phil, I want to ask you about Jordan Henderson, because we had plenty of discussions here at the tail end of the year when he was named as the Football Writers' Player of the Season, and some people thought it should have been Sadio Mane. Others were arguing that maybe Kevin De Bruyne should have won it. But he was named the Football Writers' Player of the Year. He's back fit again and was playing for Liverpool for the first game of the season last weekend.
Yep.
What does Jordan Henderson bring to this team then? Is it down to leadership? Is it down to just being a good shield in front of the defence? What's his best quality then?
Well, he's not a shield. I don't think he should have played last week. It's my honest opinion. I don't think he played enough minutes, because still coming back from injury, he wasn't quite right. And I knew it was going to be one of those games. And I think we missed Fabinho sitting in front of the defence. I think he was trying to save Jordan's legs by playing them as the holding one. And I don't think he was quite at it. What does he bring? He does have this experience now. He's been at the club. He knows the demands of what the fans, what the club, everything that comes with it. He tries to impress upon his teammates. He is focused more than, probably not as much as Milner. Milner doesn't play all the time, but he's focused on the needs of what it takes week in and week out to play for the top team, and he impresses that on people. Plus, I think he's improved dramatically with his ability, with what he sees in the game. Because when Fabinho plays, he plays to the right or the left, and him and Wijnaldum have this great energy where they do the high press. They can get there time and time, not once or twice, time and time and time again. And he sometimes takes the game to play. So, and he's got a better final ball than what he had in his first couple of years at Liverpool. So, as you can see all round, I think he was a worthy winner. Because I don't like these players who are sort of flavour of the month or flavour of a few months. I like to see, and it's hard sometimes to look, what was somebody doing in the first half of the season? How was he actually playing? And I think Jordan Henderson totally deserved his award.
Kenny, when it comes to people maybe under pressure coming into this season, Jose Mourinho, first time that Spurs have lost Everton in quite some time last weekend, beaten 1-0, wasn't the best of performances from Spurs either. A lot of people watching that documentary, All or Nothing, about Tottenham in the last few weeks and have maybe seen Jose's first year in charge. But how much pressure is for him now to try and kick on from last year, where they just about scraped the Europa League finish on the last game of the season? What's going to be expected of Jose Mourinho now?
I think improvement. I would imagine. It hasn't spent a huge amount of money in the window. We won't be happy with that. I'm sure they'll invest between now and the middle of October, and I think they need to in key areas, defensively, possibly even again in central midfield. What I'd be more worried about, to be honest, which was just the reaction after the game from what I've read and what I've listened to. I mean, I remember Jose Mourinho for the first maybe 6, 8, 10 years of his career, and his man management was absolutely flawless. I never remember one player coming out publicly within the whole squad and publicly criticising whether you're in the team or not. They absolutely loved him. He valued all his players. He protected them fiercely, and he never pointed a finger, and certainly didn't do it in public. outside of the confines of the dressing room. But he seems like a different person the last 3 or 4 years. The amount of kind of public spats, fights he's picked with individual players, and it feels really, when you strip it back, as if it's almost a deflection. And people might argue it's his motivation. He's pointing the finger at players. He's looking for a reaction off players. But I haven't found too many players that I played with who would react positively to a manager kind of hang them out a little bit in public. Very few players. That kind of hurts. That really stings. That gets under the skin. And some players, there's no coming back with some players if a manager kind of hangs them out in that respect. So I think he's got to be very careful, because if he wants to get that type of improvement that we're talking about and take the club forward, he can only take the club forward with the players in line behind them. I think he's got to be very careful how he approaches things over the next couple of weeks. And it's so important he keeps that squad united and behind them, because if he loses the players, well, then it's only a matter of time before he walks out that door or he's pushed. Yeah, Phil, I suppose getting him back into the top 4 has to be the aim for him, but that seems a tricky task when you look at the teams who've, like Chelsea, who've invested heavily and have a better squad than last season. Getting into the top 4 is going to be no easy task for them. No, without a doubt, it's going to be tough for a lot of teams. And the match on Sunday against Southampton, because they got beat at Palace, so that's going to be a tough one. And you look at some of the players, again, coming back to self-motivation. Will they be up for this game? Will they see this game as being sort of, this is a dangerous game for Spurs? And I still don't think he has strengthened in the defence enough. And I quite agree with Penny. What he did do in those early years, he identified his leaders. He got them on board. And you get the leaders on board, and you make sure that they can then get across to the players all what you need. He's lost that. I couldn't believe, and I'd have to be honest, couldn't believe he got the Manchester United job. He didn't suit Manchester United, their sort of ethos at the football club. And likewise with Spurs, the way Spurs like to be, how they like to play, Jose likes to do things in a different manner. And so now he goes in there, people stay in a position, don't come out of position. Spurs were very, very fluent under Pochettino. But Jose's way is, I'd rather sort of have a clean sheet and us get a draw out of it, clean sheet, than anything. That's not the Spurs way. I thought he was very fortunate to get such a high-profile job. But I think he's got his work cut. I totally agree. You can't alienate certain individuals, because we've all been in dressing rooms and we'll all back each other up when it comes to it, so against managers. Phil, just before I let you go, I mean, Saturdays are going to be quite different for many of us who would have sat down and watched soccer Saturday, and we've had the announcement a couple of weeks ago that yourself and Letice and Charlie Nicholas won't be around for the next season of Soccer Saturday. What's your feeling about it now? Well, I've got Saturdays off. Golf? No, listen, I've had a fantastic time. 22 years I've done Sky, from the very first days with Richard Keys, Andy Gray, myself, doing matches in 1992 to Soccer Saturday starting in sort of 94, 95 with sort of Rodney Marsh, Frank McClintock, Clive Allen and George Best. I was in that initial gang. I was one of the younger members then of it. And it comes, and every good thing comes to an end. And I've just had an absolutely terrific time doing it. And it changes what they see. I've been there long enough to see my mates, those go, Rodney and Frank. So, yes, it'll be something to miss. That crack and that banter, what we had, and good debate at times, it has to be said. I think it's one thing that people will sort of miss of our lads, but I think people have got to be given a chance. And I know people will go, oh, these are not... It took a while for everybody to gel on our programme, and we did it for many years. But I will miss it. I think people will quite understand that. But I do have to thank them for... I enjoyed every minute. Those guys, Jeff Stelling is just an absolute genius. And Tiz, Charlie, and Paul Mason. I'll miss them all on the programme. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm getting no sense of any kind of bad blood here in terms of what's happened, but was it a bit of a surprise to you when you got the news that you weren't going to be renewed for next season? No, to be honest, Will, we've been talking for the last 18 months about sort of the exit for me, because sort of me being older than everybody else and the show having to evolve,
but there was nobody there ready to sort of change. So I did have a bit of an idea. You'd have to speak to Charlie and Tiz how they reacted to theirs. But mine was, it's always a shock because you always think you can do this until I'm 90. But, it has to evolve. And you've seen Andy Gray and Richard Keys move on. So, it's there, but no problems with me.
Phil, thanks a million for joining us on the show this afternoon.
Pleasure, Will.
Cheers, Phil.
Kenny. Take care, pal.
Well, you're watching at the moment, and you will be until around 6 o'clock. Our off-the-ball football special. It's all with thanks to Paddy Power, fueling the mischief in the beautiful game. We're going to be hearing a bit of reaction from the weekend in a few moments' time. But, Kenny, when it comes to the teams you're expecting to go down from the Premier League this year, 23 years since the three who came up went down. I personally think Leeds are going to stay up from what we've seen from them so far. But who do you think are actually going to go down?
To be honest with you, Will, I'd reserve judgment a little bit until the transfer window shut, because I think some serious business can still get done between now and then. If you were judging potentially West Bromwich off what I saw the game obviously the week and what you saw at the weekend, yeah, definitely you'd say it'd have to be a struggle. Attitude was good amongst the players, work rate was great, but you looked at the team and thought where the goals are going to come from. And when kind of Leicester put a bit of a squeeze on second half in terms of a bit of the quality of football which they can play, a bit of pace and imagination to their play, they kind of opened up West Bromwich Albion a little bit. So that'd be a slight worry. But again, I'd say there's opportunity for the manager to bring players in and to complement the players already there. But if you're asking me at this moment of time, it's a difficult call. I think clearly, obviously, West Brom, it's going to be a tough season for them. And likewise, Fulham. I was looking forward to the Fulham game against Arsenal. I was disappointed, actually, in terms of how Fulham approached the game. I looked at the back four and I thought, wow, I mean, it's pretty much a replica of the team that kind of got the defensive forward that got relegated 2 years ago. Hector had come in, but Ream was still there, who I think is a decent player, but I thought struggled at the highest level last time around. Adoi, probably likewise at right back, actually like Brian in the right back position. And then I looked at the midfield, and Tom Carney, who's a very good, clever technician, but not a defender for me. He's playing like an orthodox central midfield position. I'm thinking, well, he's not going to give too much screen to that kind of defensive unit, which for me is a little bit fragile anyway. Then, of course, they look to play the beautiful game at times in terms of playing out from the back to the edge of their penalty box, and very suddenly that kind of fell apart. Arsenal put the squeeze on and they lost a little bit of confidence in that. So, no, I'd be a little bit worried again if I was a Fulham supporter. But again, opportunity for them. You might argue Mitrovic comes into the team, and I think he will make his contribution, but he's not going to be as clearly as prolific as he was last season up against a higher quality defender. So, yeah, undoubtedly West Brom. It's an obvious thing to say. West Brom and Fulham. Still with time to reinforce the squads, but at the moment you'd be worried for them. And like as Leeds United, for probably the opposite argument in terms of on one performance alone, which we probably shouldn't do, but there was enough encouragement there. We saw enough quality in the Leeds performance, spirit, kind of imagination, kind of drive, but quality as well in terms of quality of football, which they played, to give real encouragement to Leeds supporters that they can be competitive and certainly stay in the league. Well, look, the battle against the drop is trivial by comparison to the crappy quiz, which we have coming up in about 10 minutes' time. You're going to be, as you said it, you're going to be reunited with Stephen Doyle. How do you fancy your chances, Ken, in about 10 minutes' time? Well, I was assured by the producer of this show, I won't name his name, that I would be wink looked after when it came to the selection of questions. You've indicated that may not be the case when I walked into the studio, so I'll give it a go, but I'll be leaning heavily on me partner in this case, Stephen Doyle. I know he's a bit of a bookworm when it comes to football trivia, so shouldn't be an issue. Yeah, hopefully there's a music round as well if you're going to have Steve-O involved. Now, as well as some of the best punditry throughout the year, we'll also be providing live match commentary and post-match analysis with our two commentators, Nathan Murphy and Stephen Doyle, alongside our best pundits this season. This, of course, kicked off last weekend. Here's a taste of the quality commentary and analysis you can expect from Off the Ball this coming season. And a ball just played towards the byline for Pratt to cross, and up for the header there. It's Castagna, the debutant for Leicester City. After 56 minutes, it's West Brom 0, Leicester City 1. Timothy Castagna with the goal. Anthony Taylor makes sure he's on his line. As Paddy takes 4 steps up, hits it into the bottom right corner, and it's a goal from Jamie Vardy. And West Brom are now trailing by 2-0 against Leicester City with 74 minutes on the clock. Jamie Vardy stepping up again for Leicester City. It's back into the same side, about halfway up that goal post and straight inside the corner of the goal. And it's Jamie Vardy making it Leicester City 3-0 up away to West Brom here after 84 minutes.
Luke Indeed whips it in there over the header. Charleston and Calvert-Lewin powers the header into the back of the net. Everton lead in London, and Dominic Calvert-Lewin, who's been quiet. The first chance of the game he gets, and he smashes a header past Hugo Lloris. Beautiful delivery from the left-hand side from the free kick from Luca Dean. And what a goal from Dominic Calvert-Lewin. Spurs 0, Everton 1, 10 minutes gone in the second half. I've no doubt when you go home tonight in your unofficial role as, godfather of Irish football, the call will come from Stephen Kenny. You are watching the game, Brian. Seamus Coleman against Matt Doherty. The big decision he's going to face. Does he watch that game, thinking back, he's a different man, he's a different manager, but if you're watching that game and you have a big decision to make, are you reading anything into Seamus Coleman and Matt Doherty's performances? And if you are, what did you see today in terms of Ireland?
Well, I would think there's very little that Stephen Kenny didn't know in advance of his selection for the match with Bulgaria that he didn't know already that he learned today. But still, he decided to pick Matt Doherty for his first international and for his second international against Finland. The key match for us all was obviously the Slovakia game. While Stephen made grandiose statements about the importance of the Nations League and ranking points and all those things that are kind of relevant, the Slovakia match is the one that really matters. So I think for all the players who were in the squad, he played, I think, 18 players over the 2 games. He would have had a good look at them in match conditions against reasonable, not great opposition, but Finland proved they're a decent side. And I think I said in an interview with Joe Malloy before Stephen's first match that every international match can be very difficult, that every country gets the best manager they can to run the team. He picks the best players he possibly can and puts them out with a tactical shape and plan that he thinks are going to get them results, and maybe a style of play, particular style of play to achieve those results. We saw that with Bulgaria, a team that haven't been in very good form, I think they'd won very few games in the last 10 games. We saw with Finland why they have qualified for the European finals. They won 6, lost 4 of the group. Good ability. So Stephen learned a lot in that time. Now he has a month to make his mind up about what the best team is to play in the way he wants them to play, in the shape he wants them to play against Slovakia. And I would allow him to make that decision. He's the best man in the circumstances to do that. But looking at today, if it was my judgment, Seamus Coleman was the better right back in a 4 from a defensive point of view. If that's what you want, a right back to defend in that area of the pitch and attack when the opportunity arises. But Stephen may have a different vision for what he wants from his right back and his left back. When you look at the positions, the average positions of Enda Stevens and Matt Doherty in the 2 games so far, they were in advanced positions up around the halfway line in both games. If Stephen wants them to start there, maybe he feels that Matt Doherty is better than that. I would like my right back maybe not to start quite so far and to be in touch with his centre-backs in terms of as a defensive unit playing against Slovakia.
Yeah, and we might be looking back on this game totally different if Jordan Pickford hadn't made that brilliant save from Matt Doherty and he got a debut goal. But listen, it's no surprise to anyone that Seamus Coleman ain't going anywhere without a bit of a fight for his Irish place. Just to wrap up the weekend, because next week our live game on Sunday is Liverpool against Chelsea. It'll do well to match Liverpool Leeds last night 4-3. Liverpool conceded a lot of goals after the restart. We sort of put it down to they had the title won. They were just slightly off, but when they're at it, they're going to be at it. Like Virgil van Dijk's performance getting a lot of criticism, that bit of casualness, maybe a bit of arrogance creeping in. Yeah. Were there signs there that you would see that in Liverpool?
There's signs for everyone and hope for everyone that got battered by Liverpool last year that they may not be as good this season. There's a couple of things come into my mind about last night's game. One is that the fear factor and the edge that Liverpool had in playing at Anfield, the home matches last year, is out the window for this season. They had the league won by the time the league restarted last year. It was almost won. They just need to get a few points. But when you think back on the earlier part of the season, up to March, up till close down, and what it was like for the opposition, how good Liverpool were at home, battered teams, even matches that looked like slipping away from them, could turn it around if they go to. You knew the crowd and the surge behind them when the momentum goes. They won't have that back in this year. They've got the same team, just signed an extra left back, the Greek lad, who's impressive looking player. I like the look from with Greece and with Olympiacos. But, you know, they've not added any extra players to midfield. Can the front three do it again for fourth season in a row? It'll be interesting to see how it goes. I think there's every chance that's going to be much more even this year, and that I think the fact that there's no fans in the grounds will be a leveler. Home and away teams will be able to go and take every team on away from home who have that image of it's a hard place to go. You know, that like Old Trafford, a hard place to go. Away to Chelsea, hard place to go. Stamford Bridge, all that. Manchester City, everyone will go there. I think we'll see an evening out of that home and away influence, let's say. So, you know, Liverpool conceded 3 goals last night. We're still able to pull out a 4th goal. Lucky to get a penalty at the end. But, you know, certainly hope for other teams that they're not going to be miles ahead of everyone else this year. And they won't be, because Manchester City have to be better. Chelsea are certainly going to be better. And Manchester United are going to be better. To mention just 3.
Great night for Jeff Hendrick last night for Newcastle against West Ham. There's been some discussion post-match that perhaps Jeff Hendrick, was he a little bit stifled at Burnley with regards to the tactics, and we know how Sean Dyche likes to keep his teams very set up in a strict 4-4-2, and there's not much room there really for a midfielder who likes to get forward and to attack. That maybe that, you know, Dyche likes to keep his side so, you know, disciplined and tight and uniform, that maybe that was stifling Jeff Hendrick a little bit. And did we see a flash last night of what Hendrick can achieve in a team like this Newcastle team? Are we going to see a new Jeff Hendrick over this Premier League season?
Yeah, well, first of all, I haven't seen the game. I was like emotionally drained after watching Liverpool Leeds game. I couldn't watch another one after that. So it'll be interesting to see exactly what role Steve Bruce started him with. I take your point to a certain extent in terms of Burnley, the kind of style of play. Just a very kind of technical player, likes to get on the ball and play in those midfield areas. I'm not exactly sure Newcastle are that type of team, possession-based team either. Sometimes just a change. It's just a change, a fresh challenge. You know, different dressing room, different groups of players. The feeling that you've got to prove yourself again gives you kind of a boost. So that can help sometimes, Steve. Something as simple as that. But clearly Jeff has those footballing qualities. Made a great start, obviously, last night. We'll get around to watch the game, and it'll certainly benefit him in Ireland indirectly if he can get a run of fixtures in the team. He's an interesting one, Jeff, in terms of his best position. So versatile. Can he plays in midfield too? Is he a natural wide midfield player? Probably not. Still seems for me in a kind of a midfield 3, an advanced area in a midfield 3. I still think you want to get him as high up the pitch as possible and get him in contact with the forward players. He's very good. He can see a pass. Jeff, technically, he's kind of very good. So again, he's going to be an important player for us in the immediate future. Really, that Slovakia game, very experienced player now. Jeff, particularly in the Ireland setup, and we're really going to be leaning on him. I feel Stephen is certainly the game against Slovakia and in the months ahead. So great to see him start his career at Newcastle in such a positive fashion.
Absolutely. And then finally, you mentioned Liverpool Leeds. Now, I'm not going to ask you to base Liverpool's season on one match at Anfield. We know newly promoted sides can really prove to be a tough obstacle to get over in the early stages. Liverpool maybe looked sloppy in parts of that game last night. I'm sure Jurgen Klopp will be tidying that up over the next few weeks. But from you've seen, would you like? Some people seem to think that Man City are going to bounce back from last year's disappointment. I thought you made some great points with Richie earlier on. You were saying that it's going to be a totally different season, that there's going to be a lot more points taken from the top 4 teams from each other that maybe we didn't see last season. How strong a position do you think Liverpool are in to win back-to-back titles? And You know, that's really, I'm sure, what Klopp would like to achieve this season.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. They're in a great position, there's no doubt about it. It wasn't perfect at the weekend against Leeds defensively. They had it wobbled a little bit all over the place, looked a bit dysfunctional, but I wouldn't be overly concerned. Those things can be rectified pretty quickly, but from an attacking sense, they were still pretty impressive. It wasn't perfect. Firmino had a bit of an off day, looked a little bit out of sorts, unusual for him, but Salah and kind of Mane looked sharp. Midfield unit was kind of reasonably solid as well. There's more to come from Liverpool. You know, they're pretty relentless, and I always felt as if Klopp was, as long as Klopp was satisfied in terms of the mentality of the players pre-season when they came together, that the focus was there, that kind of relentless drive which they've shown the last 2 seasons was still existent, you know what I mean, and the players were still, there was that determination there for the players to go back to back. As long as he got a sense of that early in pre-season, for me there was no need for any kind of major surgery to that team, so I stick by that. I think Liverpool are still the team to beat, but I think the challenge will come, particularly for Manchester City and from the likes of Chelsea and Manchester United as well. I think they're really going to be tested this season as they've never done before. Even the likes of Leicester today, Wolves, teams below them in that top 8, I think are only going to strengthen and get stronger. So a massive test for Liverpool this season. They had their problems against Leeds, but as was the case last season, I mean, it wasn't perfect every game last season for Liverpool, but they were pretty relentless. They found a way to win on most occasions, and they did that again Saturday against Leeds. So yeah, they're in a great position, undoubtedly. They are the team to beat, but for me it's like gloves are off this season. I think teams are going to come gunning for them.
Just testing it out, Tomo. This thing's older than you.
I think Charlie used to use this to do his own videos, you know.
You mean like you've been framed? Went downhill since that Beadle left.
What are you doing here?
Charlie said I could come round. I've got my cans. Cans for curbs, curbs cans. Anyway, what are you up to?
Well, we're doing our own football show. Going to show the public what they're missing.
Nice. But how are you going to watch the 3 o'clock kickoffs?
I am not using an illegal stream, Tomo.
It's fine.
No, you don't get it. The government tracks your keystrokes via chat boxes.
Can I be the host? What's this? All the lads have been let go. Whose fault was it? Matt Letizia, your fault.
Can you go and get Charlie? We're starting in a minute.
New season. New me. New season.
Charlie, you all right?
I'm just sitting here thinking.
Well, the lads are ready. You going to come downstairs?
Well, I don't really fancy doing punditry anymore. I've decided I'm going to do stand-up.
Stand-up? Tell me a joke, then.
Not that type of stand-up, like Billy Connolly. You have a pop at me, and I come back with a real quick response.
OK. Where'd you get them f***ing jeans? Where'd you do your clothes shopping? B&Q?
Well, maybe you should consider B&Q. I mean, you look as if you probably need to go to B&Q.
You coming downstairs?
Yeah, all right.
10 minutes gone, and there's a red card in your game, Tomo.
I don't know, Kebs. Has there? I can't see. There's adverts keep coming up. Hot singles in my area.
Sounds promising. Keep me informed.
Oh!
Sis, what have you got?
It's buffering. Oh, it's all right. Start again now.
This is a joke.
Can we just put the proper show on? I want to see how the Saints are getting on.
We can't. Oh, yes, we can. We can't, Charlie. When you leave, they take away your box.
Hello? You calling from Qatar? What, you want to get the lads back together again? Well, that sounds interesting. What's that? A Zoom interview next week? I'll let them know.
Relegation Battle.
Oh, you're kidding me. September.
Kyle Lafferty.
Are you joking me?
Is that right?
I know, it's not right.
Anybody else?
Leash, was it?
Like, that is one of the most stupid questions.
Darius Vassell? Seriously, you all need to just stay quiet. This is getting really annoying doing this quiz.
What is going on here?
Welcome along to the shoutiest segment on your radio. It is the scintillating, it is the stupefying and the splendito. It is the special football edition of the Crappy Quiz. And it is a very special football pack quiz today for you, with thanks to Paddy Power. Allow me to welcome today's teams then. Our first team is potentially Ireland's next great music duo. And by music duo, we mean a man who is genuinely known as a talented singer-songwriter, aka Stewie Byrne, and a man who is genuinely just known for getting locked, sitting on someone else's shoulders and shouting the lyrics at a stage, aka Nate Dog Murphy, who are team number one.
God help anyone who has me on their shoulders right now.
Yeah, well, now is your yearly reminder as well, Nathan, to take a check of your performance in the crowd at the Happy Mondays gig at Witness Festival back in 2000, which I think is still available on YouTube.
I was there. Shame. That wasn't in the crowd. That was on the stage.
How did you end up on stage? Did you just climb up, or how did it happen?
No, I was asked to go up. I was standing in the front row, waiting for the Happy Mondays to come on, when Sean Ryder appeared. It's about 10:30 at night, my first ever festival, so you can imagine what sort of state I was in. And he came out saying, I need someone to play bass. And I played guitar, so my mates were like, oh, he'll do it. No, I didn't know any Happy Monday songs.
Did you play bass guitar or just guitar generally?
Eventually, I figured out he was saying, I need someone to play bass.
Bass, yeah.
So I was brought backstage into a porta cabin, where I was handed a bottle of Jack Daniels. There were 3 topless ladies, and they said, we're going on stage in 2 minutes. All you got to do is dance.
Everything, Nathan.
It's a dream.
So I went on stage, danced away. The 3 topless ladies appeared on stage. Had a great time. Was delighted with myself. About an hour later, I finished up, and phone rings, and it's my mother saying, just watching TV3 there, and they were showing a band live with 3 topless ladies, and it looked like you were in the middle of them. So
sounds like a decent night at the festival for me.
Thank God Nathan never went topless.
There you go.
I don't think anybody could top that, Nathan. That's amazing.
Yeah, no, I was a much slimmer man back then, Kenny. I would have been fine.
I thought you were taking out a crowd because you were crushing the people in your immediate vicinity.
No, that's where it all went. That's where it all started to go downhill. That night was where it all started to go downhill.
Well, our second team then have already seen cracks appear in their relationship. Half of this team is a legend of the north side of the city of Dublin, #1 customer of Thunder's Bakery, Kenny Cunningham, who's here with me in studio. But hailing from the south of the Liffey is a man who didn't grow up in the Thunder's locality and thereby couldn't tell an eclair from a vanilla slice. Give it up for Stephen Doyle, who's going to join Kenny on Zoom. Steve-o, what's the story?
Manning's loyal, Will. Manning's loyal, that's all I'd say.
You've got a natural advantage here. You know, you and Kenny worked together last weekend on the West Brom game. So you've got this
we've got a problem. We've got a problem. We've got a problem.
I take a lot of confidence here from the fact that Stewie Byrne is still calling it the Premiership as well. So I think myself and Kenny should do okay.
Lots of English rugby questions, don't worry. Kenny, go on. You're about to out Steve-o here.
Well, I was making the argument to the producer that I was only right myself and Steve, and being born and bred north side, it was an obvious kind of pairing, but it was made known to me at a later stage that Stephen hasn't got such strong roots in the north side of the city. And he spent his early years out in there somewhere near the Wicklow Mountains. I was told. Big shock to me.
Kenny, my 2 parents both English, so I claim myself as a half and half north sider, south sider, you know.
His argument here, Kenny, is south side blood,
that's a
north
poor
side
comeback, isn't it?
Right, well, we've got dissension already on team number 2. And our final team contains 2 guys who have done nothing but win things recently in their career. First of all, we've got Vinnie Perth, who's got 2 FAI Cups as a player, a First Division medal as a player, a Premier Division medal as a player, as well as an EA Sports Cup medal, a President's Cup title, and the PFAI Manager of the Year title from last year. And alongside Vinnie, we've got John Duggan, who's an IMRO Radio Award from last year. We've got the Gilded Duo, as they've been called by our producer. It's John and Vinnie. How are you getting on, lads?
I'm sitting on Vinny's soccer coattails here, and I'm guaranteed to be the worst person in this crappy quiz. So, Vinny, it's all on you. and I know we're going to deliver, and I know you're going to be the star number 10 here.
No, I'm going to struggle, but anyway, with that introduction, you wonder why I have nothing to do today, to be honest with you.
Well, look,
you're confusing me there. I'm confused.
Well, for nice Italian, Vinny.
Yeah. The local Roma.
Well, look, that might be it's the nicest run through of your CV that we ever had. We can thank our production team for those fantastic intros. So what we're going to do, because as you can see on the screen at the moment, we've got the Brady Bunch set up, but most of the guys at the moment due to social distancing. So what we're going to do is the questions will be directly to one member of the team, and they will answer the question this time round. So we'll still no doubt of shouting over each other, but we'll try and keep it a little bit organised this time round. So round one is the boring Republic of Ireland trivia round, and it's going to test your knowledge on the Republic of Ireland football team, and is for the expert on your team only. For clarity, the experts on this round are Stewie, Kenny and Vinny. So we'll have a question for one each.
Pressure.
First up is
Nathan.
team number one, which is Nathan and Stewie. Stewie, you've to answer this one. Which of the following Republic of Ireland managers had the best win percentage? Was it A, Brian Kerr, B, Mick McCarthy, or C, Jack Charlton?
I'll leave off, for God's sake. Even Stewie can get that. Even Stewie can get that.
I might go with Brian Kerr because he...
There you go. Brian Kerr, correct. Despite not getting Ireland to a major finals, he had a better win percentage in the time he was in charge than both Jack Charlton.
Go on, Stewie.
Good start from Stewie. Now, Kenny was trying to put him off, whispering in his ear as he was getting ready for a penalty.
I heard it, yeah. I'll get him back for that.
Stewie, feel free to shout away in the background while Kenny has to answer this one. So, Kenny,
customer, Stewie, he doesn't flap.
Your question then, Kenny. Can you name the last team the Republic of Ireland have beaten in a competitive fixture, not with the names Georgia or Gibraltar? So the last team that Ireland had beaten that weren't Georgia or Gibraltar.
Every game's competitive. So literally the last game
just
we won.
answer the question. Come on.
Last game we won. Okay. I'll confer on this if you don't mind with my teammate Stephen. Do you want to come in on this?
End is not shaking his head, so I think he can help.
I can confer, surely. That's the whole of the team game, isn't it?
Come on, Steve.
No, did you not hear the rules?
There's a lot of no's on this, Kenny.
Steve, my phone's on, just to let you know. Right in the studio.
Unless he can WhatsApp you quickly.
But I forgot my glasses, so I was pointing to sending that. Last competitive fixture.
The Ireland have won, yeah.
It'd be it had to be Gibraltar.
No, not Gibraltar or Georgia.
Not Gibraltar or Georgia. Any others? You want to throw in a few more as well? Do I have to go back to 1978?
How long do you get, by the way?
Well, we're going to have to push you for an answer here, Ken.
Who was in our last qualifying campaign? Prior to that, absolutely no idea. Don't know.
Going to give S. Jersey from the games over there, David Meyler.
Wales.
Against Wales, yeah.
Meyler's jersey staring at me there.
Right.
Come on, Vinny.
Vinny, this one's on you. What is the current world ranking of the Republic of Ireland football team? Are they in 30th position, 32nd or 34th?
Bad question.
The lads will know that because they say it all the time, don't they?
I knew it was 30-something, but...
That's desperate.
You've fallen a couple of places. I'm going to guess 34.
Yeah, good guess.
Oh, fair play.
Get in, Vinny, get in.
No pressure.
Educated guess. That wasn't a lucky guess, that was an educated guess.
No early pressure then on Kenny.
The fairness of this competition, considering the other two teams got multiple choice.
That's a desperately hard question. Wales in 1967. I wasn't ever going to get that.
In the studio to give him a hand, for God's sake.
Look, send your complaints to Owen Sheehan via postcard if you want to complain about the questions themselves. Next round is about the Europa League versus fictitious places round. This is going to be fun to read. So as the Europa League needs another qualifying round this week, we bring back a crappy quiz classic. We're going to give you 3 names. One of them is a Europa League club, and 2 of them are going to be names of places that don't exist at all in real life. All you have to do is give me the name of the football club to score a point. This question is for what's been called the plebs of the team. So for clarity, the plebs are Nathan, Stephen and John. I could have been members of OTB Sport, but no, the plebs for this team. So this is for Nathan and Stewie's team, who've got 1 out of 1 so far. Okay, here we go. So 2 of these names are cities in Game of Thrones. The other is playing in the Europa League on Thursday night. So which of these is a Europa League team? It's either Satar, Tolos, or Jablonec.
Say it again?
Not again.
Bad pronunciation.
So, Sitar, Tolos,
Qatar,
or Jablanek?
This is easy.
Do you watch Game of Thrones?
The last one. Jablanek.
There you go. They are
Nathan.
from the Czech Republic, and they're playing on Thursday evening. So there you go. The other two are locations from Game of Thrones. Steve Owen Kenny then, and this is Steve O's to answer. He said the last one was easy, so let's see how easy he thinks it is. Two of these names are planets in Star Wars. The other is playing in the Europa League on Thursday. So which of these is a Europa League team? All right, so we've got Kairat. I'll spell it just in case. Kairat. Kashyyyk. Kash, 3 Ys and a K. Or Karelia. So it's either Kairat, Kashyyyk, or Karelia, Steve-O.
You spell the last one there, Will?
Yeah, I can. It's Corellia.
Yeah, it's Kairat.
It is. Kairat play in the Afghan Premier League, and they'll be up against Maccabi Haifa later this week.
Okie
dokie. So that's the boys off and up and running. John and Vinny, this is for John Duggan then. Two of these teams are places in Lord of the Rings. The other is playing in the Europa League this week. So which is the Europa League team? So you've got Lorien, Lorian, Numenor, Numenor, or Renova, Renova. What's it going to be, John?
Best of luck.
I would say I really don't like Lord of the Rings or the Europa League, but I will say Renova.
A good guess. Renova are from North Macedonia. So 2 plays 1 plays 2 is what we've got so far. So the ground has to be caught up by both Kenny and Steve-O. This is the double jeopardy Premier League round. So given we're having a Premier League special, this should be nice and easy. In this round, everyone will have to answer a question. If both members of your team answer their questions correctly, your team will score 3 points. However, if only one of you gives a correct answer, you'll just score the single point for the question that you get correct. And no correct answer would mean 0. So there's a bonus if both team members can get it correct.
No answers means 0. Wow.
Yeah, I know.
That's controversial.
It's a hell of a dynamic here, Kenny. We were thinking of giving out freebies.
Really thinking out of the box in this quiz.
Right, Stewie, you're first up here. Can you name any of the top 5 French appearance makers in Premier League history?
Give me that again.
Top 5.
So you have to name any of the top 5 French appearance makers in the Premier League history.
Oh, come on. It's a joke.
Any of the top 5?
Yeah.
Joke.
Thierry Henry.
And okay. Nathan, because I have to ask you the same question, I can't tell you whether Stewie was right or not, I'm told. So same question to you. Can you name one of the top 5 French appearance makers in Premier League history?
Tigana.
Top 5. So how many have I to name?
Just the one.
Platini.
5 French.
I have to press you, Nathan.
Oh, come on, Nathan, for God's sake.
This show is live, right?
Patrick Vieira.
No. Thierry Henry, Patrick Vieira, neither are in the top 5. That buzzer just confirms that. Sylvain Distin, Nicolas Anelka, Steve Malbronk, Guy Clichy, or William Gallas are the top 5.
Steve Malbronk.
Played for Fulham.
Fulham,
yeah.
Fulham.
Do you know, my partner was nodding negatively after I answered. Did you notice that?
So he knew.
And then he gets it wrong.
Still goes for a player from the same team. All right, so no points for the lads. A chance for Steve and Kenny very much to get back into it here.
Oh, sorry, do you mind me? Sorry, at a point of order there. Nicolas Anelka played more Premiership games than Patrick Vieira.
Yeah. Well, he was backing around. Remember, he came back to Bolton,
Man City,
Liverpool, and
yeah,
he 2 runs out.
Yeah, that's true. I'll take that back. Sorry.
I actually went for Thierry Henry because Kenny should have talked about him last night. All he was Thierry Henry.
He was so good, lads. He was so good. You wouldn't believe it. I did me best.
Kenny only ever saw the back of Thierry Henry, though.
Right,
Kenny. Well, let's do this.
Steve and Kenny, after Steve will get his dig in against Kenny there. Kenny, you have to go first on this one. Name any of the top 5 appearance makers as goalkeepers in Premier League history.
Premier? Why does it have to be the Premier League?
Because it's a Premier League round.
I was thinking Shilton. Shilton there.
Googling there, Steve-O.
Sorry?
You Googling?
No.
Right.
Enda, keep an eye on him in the background, like Kenny thinks.
I'd have to go with it's the obvious one, but I'm going to go with...
Go on.
Oh, see, the Seaman was around too many before the Prem, wasn't it? It's a killer, isn't it? Need someone who's just come out of Premiership, really, a goalkeeper.
Need an answer, Kenny, come on.
Oh, Jesus. Schmeichel. I know it's not him.
Right, okay. And Steve-O, give us one of the top 5 appearance maker goalkeepers there.
Petr Cech.
Okay, so we got one right and one wrong. Petr Cech was right, Peter Schmeichel was outside. So 1 point for the lads from the combined answers. We've got David James, Mark Schwarzer, Shay Given, Brad Friedel and Petr Cech were the top 5.
Shazer.
So, right, you got one back in the lads. We're all level now at the moment, but this is a chance for Vinny and John to pull out in front. Vinny, can you name any of the top 5 players who've been shown the most yellow cards in Premier League history?
Oh, yellow cards. Jeez, because he has reds, I'm going to go with my old buddy, Richard Dunn.
Okay. John, same question to you on that one then.
Gareth Barry.
We got 1 out of 2 again from the lads. Gareth Barry was inside the top 5. The other 4 players, Wayne Rooney, Lee Bowyer, Kevin Davies and Paul Scholes. The most booked players ever.
Oh yeah, you couldn't tackle him.
Yeah. So, Enda, I think by my maths, that was 1 and 1 scored. Does that put team number 3 just ahead?
We're still in the lead, effectively, yeah.
2-2-3. So Vinny and John are ahead by a single point as we go into round number 4. And this is a quick fire round, which is the way that we always decide things out at the end. In this round, you're all going to go against the clock, is the plan that we have. And I think tradition on this one, and if you can just totally clarify for me, is the team who are ahead get to go first, I think, don't they? Yeah, so I'll keep asking questions. We'll run out of them in the end. And what we'll do is we'll go to the next team after that. So obviously team number 3 are ahead, then we'll go team number 2, then team number 1. So this is for Vinny and John. Either of you can answer the question. Let's get things going then. Okay, so here we go. We will start off. The team who are in first place at the moment are team number 3. Then we'll move on to team number 2 and then team number 1. Once you get a question wrong, I will move on to the next team and you'll be deducted 1 point if you've given a wrong answer. Each correct question here will be worth 1 point. So, hopefully the teams are ready on
what
this
if you
one.
don't give any answer?
You lose. You still get knocked a point, don't you?
We don't. Not wrong. You're actually giving a wrong answer.
on,
you're not technically giving a wrong answer
here.
if you say nothing. You with me on that, lads? If you don't actually say anything, if you don't give an answer.
Right? You can pass.
You can pass, yeah. And we'll get it moving because there's 40 seconds on the clock and we've got 12 questions. So there's still 12 points up for grabs here, okay? So the first question is going to be to John and Vinny. Which club did Anthony Stokes leave this week?
Livingston.
Correct. In which year did Manchester United last win the Champions League?
2008.
Yeah. Who's older, Timo Werner or Kai Havertz?
What's the question?
Who's older, Timo Werner or Kai Havertz?
Timo Werner.
Correct.
Yeah.
Who did France beat in the 2018 World Cup semi-final? Don't mind that. That's just ending not having a timer that's long enough. Who did France beat in the 2018 World Cup semi-final, John or Vinny?
Belgium.
Correct. Who currently sits bottom of the League of Ireland Premier Division?
Bottom?
Yeah.
Cork City.
Correct. World Cup winner Alex Morgan joined which women's Super League team in England in the past week? Tottenham Hotspur, yeah. Which England wunderkind has had his number retired at Birmingham City this summer? And Enda is shaking. We already know the victors because team number 3 went on a run there. And no need for the tiebreaker. Our congratulations go to John Duggan and to Vinnie Perth. Nathan Murphy is shaking his head. Kenny Cunningham is shaking his head.
Oh, it's over.
Yeah.
I was waiting for a round.
You didn't get a chance.
What's going on? It's shambles.
You told me that was for everybody.
Thanks, Stewie.
We're that good. There's no point wasting time.
You said beforehand that team 3 were going to go, then team 2, then team 1.
Yeah, which is Stewie. 3 got a question wrong, which they didn't.
There's an we have to get through. We're going to win anyway, so we may as well move on.
All he can do is Robert De Niro impressions. That's all he can do.
Null and void. Null and void.
John Duggan, give us your gracious victory speech then.
Well, it's all that. And all those
we don't put in there.
Have you never watched the crappy quiz before? When someone gets a question wrong, then it moves to the next team, and then the next team gets a chance.
Court of arbitration.
We didn't get
This should be our next step.
Yeah. Kenny and John managed to get 5 questions in a row correct, and they win the quiz.
And everybody else was waiting for theirs.
I think I'm going to retire now, actually. Vinny, I think we should retire and just maybe...
He is retired.
Nathan, can you do a Robert De Niro impression there for...
I'll wait for this. We have a few minutes. Go on.
That's a shambles. You should be embarrassed, lads. A giant asterisk beside that.
Yeah. Will and Ender are getting clipped after this. That's all I'll say.
I've absconded from work for this.
We had a problem. There's nothing we could do about it. What do you mean we had a problem? There's nothing we could do about it.
No. Well, I've been rehearsing
the phone box,
researching Premiership information all day, and then them questions come out.
All right, let's play again. Come on, this is great crack.
All right, joke over, Will. Joke over. Let's do it properly now. Come on.
If only Owen Sheehan had written more questions as opposed to ducking out after putting 4 rounds of questions together, which may have left us slightly short on the quiz. But look, the official winners on this are John and Vinny.
Well done, lads.
My dream partner. I'm very proud of you, John. Your performance today was
Vinny, I will see you on a Saturday soon.
Yeah, and you know what they say, you can't win anything without good teammates, so thanks, John.
Absolutely.
I really mean a lot.
I didn't know the Cork City answer anyway.
You can add that to my list of achievements.
Right, there's no points for these questions, but I'll run around the squares anyway, considering Stewie's taking time off work to talk to us. Stewie, you can have first bite on this one. Who's going to win the Premier League title this season?
Who's going to win the Premier League title? Liverpool.
City, probably their closest contenders?
No.
Oh.
Say United or Chelsea probably might push in. I'd say Chelsea maybe.
Okay. So your top 4 then, I'm guessing obviously the winner for you is going to be Liverpool. The rest of your top 4, you don't have to give them an order, but the other 3 teams who will get Champions League?
I'm going to throw a bogey in there. I think United will get Champions League. I've got Liverpool, Chelsea, City, United, yeah.
Enthusiasm.
Yeah, go on. Give us the bottom 3, Stewie.
Bottom 3? God.
Hasn't done his prep.
No.
He can't even
no
name
right answer to
three
this,
Premiership
Stewie.
clubs.
He's doing his prep on Shamrock Rovers nice in Milan.
He doesn't know any teams outside the top 6.
I don't know anything outside the top 6.
Like Barnsley, Scunthorpe,
Bournemouth.
Wickham.
Bournemouth are already gone.
Sheffield Wednesday. Sheffield Wednesday,
yeah. Come on. Jeez. Sheffield United.
Oh.
He's just clutching names here. He's just happy to name.
Wolves.
He's just happy to name.
Wolves. One-hit wonders. Wolves. One-hit wonders. And Tottenham. Get rid of that gobshite once and for all.
Oh, Lord. Vinny Perth, if you were doing all your research on this, who's going to win the Premier League this year then?
Yeah. Who's my top 3? Liverpool, City are still going to be the top 2, and I'm struggling there. I was expecting more City last night, so wait to see what Man United do. I'm not sure about them. They're still short, in my opinion, so there's one spot up for grabs there. I'm not sure who it is, so...
I think
Spurs let us down as well yesterday as well, I think. So
I don't think you're going to be as controversial as Stewie by picking Wolves and Sheffield United to go from just outside the European places to getting relegated.
Hey, hang on a minute now. Hang on a sec. We'll talk about this at the end of the season, all right? We'll see where we are, all right? Nobody said Leicester was going to win the league.
No, Fulham will definitely go down.
I don't see the link there, but...
After one game, it's pretty obvious they're going to struggle. They haven't strengthened. Who else? How do you know, like... Jesus, top Brighton were poor last night. I think they're going to struggle. And then it's 1 from another 6, isn't it? So you need to go on a run.
Okay. Aside from the Premier League, Vinny, not to kind of dig up anything awkward here, but how do you reckon your old club, Dundalk, are going to get on in Andorra this week? I mean, it's obviously crucial for the club to try and progress and get into Europa League football. How do you think they'll get on Thursday?
I think to be fair, the Andorra side, the fact it's away is difficult. Very few Irish teams historically have won European games away from home. People look at Andorra. Remember last year when they looked at us playing in Riga, but the Andorrans are definitely a side that they can beat. That one is a favourable draw. But then the following week, if they do win, they're away to Moldovan champions. And again, people on the outside look at that and go, Moldova, Sheriff are a decent side, a lot of money behind them. So, but they're not as strong as they were a couple of years ago. So the two winnable ties, I think we may end up with a chance of a playoff game, Dundalk. So with a bit of luck going their way in them two games. But being away from home, if they handed Andorra home and away, I would say they'd be red hot favourites. Difficult being away from home.
When it comes to Shamrock Rovers, Vinny, I mean, Milan obviously is a very difficult game to try and overcome. It would have been fantastic for them if pandemic restrictions weren't here. That game probably would have been at the Aviva. It would have been a huge windfall for the club. As it turns out, it's going to be an empty Tala on Thursday night. But how do you reckon Rovers are going to get on, given that they've been going so well in the league over the last while? Can they push Milan on Thursday?
Again, it's the same thing. Empty stadiums at the moment is huge. It's really throwing games. Also, I've had a little bit of luck at Milan just in terms of pre-season. And the one thing that would scare, Stewie will know this, he's played a lot of European games, is the one thing that scares you is real pace. They don't look like they've got real pace. So Rovers, to be fair to them, over the last couple of years, aren't afraid of keeping the ball. So that'll give them a chance. The one concern I would have is Rovers' shape against them. They can get hurt down the sides if they're not careful. Rovers tend to play with that sort of three box midfield. But listen, they're flying in the league. They're full of confidence, and anything can happen. Obviously, AC Milan are red hot favourites. So just hope for the league that they're thereabouts come late in the game, and people in leagues, people that support the league have something to shout about, because if they're well beaten, we'll hear from a lot of people in the social media world, and so I hope that they're thereabouts. But it's a difficult tie for them. I'd say they preferred a game that they can win as opposed to the glamour of AC Milan. So particularly with empty stadiums.
Vinny, just on that, Vinny, we saw Liam Scales coming in there for that recent Bows victory that they got. He was over at Man City doing trials last year, and there was talk maybe going to doing that move to Bristol before that fell through. But watching the last few weeks, he definitely looks like a player who could be playing at that level in the UK as well.
Yeah, I know Bristol Rovers are interested in him. Fleetwood Town, I think between the two of them, it looks like the deal fell through last year. He was on trial, but this is a level up, and it's obviously a couple of levels up. So we'll be tested then. There's no doubt we need to see our players tested at that highest level, and then we can find out what they're all about. But he's had a great month, there's no doubt about it. But the flip side of it just shows you how fickle it is. He could have gave away 2 penalties in the Bows game. Now, people will argue whether they were or they weren't, but there was a pull on the jersey, and his body shape was very square, and for the second incident. So it'd be interesting. I presume he's going to play because of his form of late. He gives more legs than, say, someone like Joey O'Brien, and you'll need that sort of high energy. So, and the three at the back has suited him. But it'd be interesting to see. Milan might play 2 up top against him, so it's definitely a bigger challenge. But if he comes through that challenge, there's no doubt people in the UK are looking at our players now, left, right and centre, from League of Ireland players. I see it with Dundalk, with the amount of players out of contract. Their age doesn't matter. It used to be if you sort of were 23, 24, you've missed a boat. That's not the case anymore. There's real interest in players right up till 28, 29, because they're free agents now. And there's not that much money in the English game.
Stewie, how do you reckon Shamrock Rovers get on against Milan then?
I think they've got a chance. I think it's important that they go in with a game plan, and discipline is huge for them, which I think goes in their favour, because they've been very disciplined this year, as opposed to other years. They've had they've sort of, especially in big games and a lot of the Bows games, they had players needlessly sent off and things like that. So the one-off game, the no crowd, I think they've gathered momentum in Europe in the last couple of years, put in some very good performances. So I think they understand how to play at that level. So I'd give them a chance. It just really depends on whether they can take opportunities once they come along. Goals in recent times they've been until the Cork game, and Cork were pretty poor last week. They had been sort of struggling to really kind of carve people open. But if they can take those opportunities, then they have a chance.
Like anything in these games, Stewie, set pieces is huge, and I think Rovers are strong from set pieces, particularly with 3 centre halves,
especially with the delivery as well. Actually, yeah. No, it's a good point. Yeah, I think we're seeing that now that set pieces are becoming a big part of this one-off game thing. Like, and I mean, AC Milan is probably. I mean, I don't. It depends on how it affects them. This Irish sides have down the years have won big games like this and nearly almost put big clubs into real financial difficulty. So there's big pressure on them to get through this. But I think it's important that they put their best foot forward. Everyone's going to be watching the game as well. So it's a nice game to have, to be quite honest, considering the year that we've had with football, especially football in Ireland. So it's one to look forward to really more than anything.
Okay, fingers crossed for both teams this coming week. Team OTB Sports, I haven't forgot about your predictions. They can be read in more detail on the OTB Sports website. But Stephen Doyle, give me your Premier League winner, top 4 and bottom 3.
Yeah, I think Liverpool are going to do it. I think we're going to have a new runner-up this year. I actually think Manchester United have bought really well. I know they've got issues at the back, but I think they'll have enough quality there to get into second place. I think City, and then I think it'll be between City and Arsenal then for third and fourth. I don't think this Chelsea experiment is going to work. Saw them last night, and what concerned me about Chelsea last night was even the fact that they were leading 3-1. There was a siege on their box for the last 10-20 minutes, and all the great teams should be able to dominate a side like Brighton in a game like that. So I just think Frank Lampard's going to have issues trying to gel that team together. So many new signings coming in at the same time. So I'm going to go for Liverpool, United, and then either City or Arsenal third or fourth. And then going down, I had Fulham, Villa and Crystal Palace, but after seeing West Brom on Sunday, I think they're in trouble as well. I'm going to go for Fulham, West Brom and Wooner. I think Villa will go down with them as well. Okay, Nathan, my suggestion to you, based on social media over the last 4 or 5 days, is not to mention Leeds going down here, but who are you going to pick?
I didn't say Leeds will go down.
That's the perception Leeds fans took, though.
Well, I just said that maybe it wasn't the greatest championship of all time last season, and that people are talking them finishing where Sheffield United did last season, kicking on, pushing for Europa League spot. I just don't see that. Listen, they were brilliant at times against Liverpool, but Liverpool were the perfect opponents for them in terms of the way they play. I'll stick with the bottom 3 I went with before the start of the season, so a full week ago, of Villa, same as Steve, of Villa, West Brom and Fulham. Obviously we haven't seen Villa yet, but West Brom and Fulham didn't show a huge amount. And then I'll stick with Liverpool for the title. I think the rest of the top 4 will be City, United, and just not convinced by Chelsea either. Not convinced by Havertz and Werner. They've come with big prices. Okay, they've done it in the Bundesliga, and I'm not going to disparage the Bundesliga. I saw a lot of both of them at times in the Champions League and the Europa League over the couple of seasons, and there were a lot of games where they were ineffectual. And if they don't deliver, he's upset the younger lads who came in last season and been pushed out of the side. So I think Arsenal might squeeze in to the top 4 just ahead of Chelsea.
Okay, John Duggan, as the winning team, well, half of our winning team here, give us the winning team for the Premier League, the top 4 and the bottom 3.
I don't think I should really say anything else, to be honest, after that, because it's all going to go downhill. I'd be of the view that I think Liverpool will win the title again. I think City, United will be in the top 4. And I would kind of agree with the lads. I do think Arsenal, I really like Arteta. I really like what he's doing there at Arsenal. Unfortunately, it very pains me a lot to say it, but I think they'll be there or thereabouts. But I originally went for Chelsea in the top 4, so I'm just going to stick with what I originally went for. But I'm going to change my bottom 3. I think Fulham, I didn't have them in the bottom 3. They're going down with West Brom. And I had Palace to go down. Now, I know they won the other day, but I still think Palace don't score enough goals. I don't know whether Batshuayi will make any difference to that. But I think Roy Hodgson and Palace still, the way they finished the season, they were tanking. And I think with Villa with Grealish staying, with say Watkins joining, maybe Palace, Fulham and West Brom might go down. But Jose's not bad for the sack race, lads. I think he was 33-1 or something last week. And the way it started, he could be gone before. It's not been a good start.
I think I'll still take David Moyes. They've got a lot of difficult fixtures coming up, West Ham. Kenny, before I let you go, thanks a million to the lads for joining us for the quiz. Where did you get your Banksy t-shirt from?
A retail outlet. I didn't pay much attention, to be honest with you. I just grabbed it off the hook. It was pointed out to me afterwards, after I'd made the purchase. Yeah, I wasn't particularly looking to make a point.
Not a political decision, folks. Kenny's back on Sunday with Nathan on commentary for the big game of the weekend. That's Liverpool against Chelsea. What's your plans between now and then? You've got a lot of golf planned, do you?
I have a lot of golf planned, absolutely, yeah. I've been itching to get out, so I've had a few invitations. Not really invitations, I've kind of bullied people into taking me out for a game, so yeah, that's on my social calendar over the next few days.
Right, well, hopefully the weather stays good for you. Thanks a million for dropping into us, Kenny. Coming up in about half an hour's time, we're going to have an exclusive interview between Wes Brown and David Meyler, who, of course, we have his jersey from that Wales win that Kenny mentioned a while ago, still hanging on our walls here in the OTB studio. But up next, it's going to be the Paddy Power half hour, where we are joined by former Republic of Ireland defender Gary Breen. We'll be talking to Paddy Power himself, and looking forward to this weekend's Premier League.
No, he just didn't play well, and I think they were taken aback by, how good Leeds were in terms of going at them and going for the jugular. So no, you won't be worried about that. It's very rare they ever really concede 3 goals. I know you might point to Watford last year when they didn't turn up, etc. But no, I wouldn't be. World-class players don't suddenly become poor players overnight. And I think Klopp said afterwards, he said, it's not like riding a bike. You just get back on the bike and off you go. You've got to just... There are certain things you've got to do defensively every week in, week out. And if you don't do them, as we saw on Saturday, then you're in trouble. No, I think they had a bad day defensively. I think that's all it'll be looked at as well.
He's obviously right in what he says then, is he, that we need weeks together, basically. Even if you've played 500 games together, if you have an off-season, you kind of start from square one again?
Oh, yeah, well, that's the way that it is. It's why that, at the start of the season, everyone gets together, and certainly Liverpool players, and no one will say, let's win the league again, or let's win the Champions League. You just settle to win anything. But also, I always feel in the first 5 to 10 games of the season, you're looking at the opposition, not just about the way they play against you, but were they fitter than you? And that's a big thing, because obviously everybody tries to get fit for the first game of the season. But in terms of things like, midfield players and strikers, in terms of touch, playing competitive games is the only way actually you become extremely competitive. So in many ways for Liverpool, that was a fabulous workout. Didn't play particularly well without the ball, but as I said to you before, they won. And that's all that really matters. I mean, that'll be first and foremost the Klopp, which will be, well, we've won, we got the points. But he will be obviously making points to the players about the way that they played in the game.
Yeah, one of those players he might look at is Trent Alexander-Arnold. Is there a situation here where he is so unbelievably good going forward, Mark, that there is bound to be a moment or two here in the season where he lapses, where he isn't quite on it defensively? It did feel like a bit of early season rustiness. Is there a theme developing here at all, where once every 5, even 10 games that Trent Alexander-Arnold tends to have that lapse?
Possibly, but then how many points did Liverpool win the league by? And they didn't play particularly well after lockdown. So I wouldn't, the thing about Trent Alexander-Arnold, it's what he gives you going forward. If you then want him to be a little bit more defensive-minded, he's not going to be the same player. So, it's you kind of stuck between the devil and the deep blue sea in many ways. You wouldn't say he's a great defender, but with his pace, he should be a little bit better. And occasionally, I think he gets a little bit carried away insofar as he goes forward, he creates, umpteen opportunities, scores goals and free kicks and stuff. I think sometimes what you just have to probably remind him is he's actually a defender. And, it's quite important sometimes to defend. But look, the way that Liverpool are, we know the best centre-back partnership is Gomez and, of course, Van Dijk. So they know how Liverpool play. They know the 2 full-backs bomb on. And generally, you kind of pull one of the midfield players back to make it like a 3, just in case, because of the full-backs going forward. So, hey, it's... didn't play well, scored 4 goals, won the game.
Just testing it out, Tomo. This thing's older than you.
I think Charlie used to use this to do his own videos,
You mean like you've been framed? Went downhill since.
I am not using an illegal stream, Tomo. It's fine. No, you don't get it. The government tracks your keystrokes via chat boxes.
Can I be the host? What's this? All the lads have been let go. Whose fault was it? Matt Letizia, your fault.
Can you go and get Charlie? We're starting in a minute.
New season, new me, new season.
Charlie, you all right?
I'm just sitting here thinking.
Well, the lads are ready. You going to come downstairs?
Well, I don't really fancy doing punditry anymore. I've decided I'm going to do stand-up.
Stand-up? Tell me a joke, then.
Not that type of stand-up, like Billy Connolly. You have a pop at me, and I come back with a real quick response.
OK. Where'd you get them f***ing jeans? Where'd you do your clothes shopping? B&Q?
Well, maybe you should consider B&Q. I mean, you look as if you probably need to go to B&Q.
You coming downstairs?
Yeah, all right.
10 minutes gone, and there's a red card in your game, Tomo.
I don't know, Kebs. Has there? I can't see. There's adverts keep coming up. Hot singles in my area.
Sounds promising. Keep me informed.
Oh!
Sis, what have you got?
It's buffering. Oh, it's all right. Start again now.
This is a joke.
Can we just put the proper show on? I want to see how the Saints are getting on.
We can't.
Oh, yes, we can.
We can't, Charlie. When you leave, they take away your box.
Hello? You calling from Qatar? What, you want to get the lads back together again? Well, that sounds interesting. What's that? A Zoom interview next week? I'll let them know.
The Paddy Power Half Hour on Off the Ball.
With Paddy Power, as obnoxiously passionate about soccer as Frank Lampard after the final whistle. Gamble responsibly, cwe.net.
Still to come on our OTB football special, we will have a special sit-down between Wes Brown and David Meyler to come in about half an hour's time. But it is time now for the Paddy Power Half Hour. We're going to take a look forward to this weekend's football and a look at the markets in terms of what's going to happen in this 2021 season of the Premier League. We're joined by the host of Team 33 from Off the Ball. It is Enda Cole. We've also got Gary Breen and we've got Paddy Power to have a conversation about everything over the next half hour. Enda, good afternoon to you, first of all.
Will, how's it going?
Not too bad. We had our first Paddy Power half hour of the new season last weekend, and no great surprises in terms of the results, but we've got a hell of a game to look forward to this coming Sunday. It's live on Off the Ball, with thanks to Paddy Power, at 4 o'clock this Sunday, and that's Liverpool against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge. We'll probably get a reasonable idea of where Chelsea and their new signings are at when they take on the defending champions.
Yeah, but I said last night, my prediction after watching Game Week 1 is that you can't write off any team based on one game in the Premier League, and I stand by that. A lot of people are sort of making a snap judgment now on where Chelsea are at compared to where they expected them to be, but only 2 of their signings started last night. They still have Chilwell to come in, they still have Thiago Silva to come in, and they still have Sarr to come in as well, and potentially even a goalkeeper. So I'm not going to write off Chelsea in terms of where I predicted them to be, and that's fighting for a second place side. Liverpool look weary at the back, but they'll probably tighten up again. Plus, Leeds were perfectly suited to do that to Liverpool. They're the type of team that start in the front foot anyway. So I think my predictions so far have been pretty much steady as I thought they would be, but in terms of relegation, Fulham, as expected, are in real danger as well. So it'll be interesting to see where City are at. That's the team I'm most interested in. Not so much Man United. I think they'll be level enough to where they were last year, but City haven't built as much as we would have expected. So I'm really looking forward to seeing them this weekend, see where they're at as well.
Yeah, we'll talk about Man City and Manchester United. We didn't get to talk about them a huge amount earlier on because they didn't play on game week 1 because they were given that extra time off because of how deep they went into the European competitions in the Europa League and the Champions League, respectively. Gary Breen, to bring you in on this one, we're looking at the potential winner of the Premier League for this season. The feeling we had earlier from chatting to Gordon Strachan and Phil Thompson and Kenny Cunningham, they all reckon it's probably going to be a race between Liverpool and Man City, but in all likelihood, they're not going to be quite as far in front, those two, as they have been from the chasing pack in the last 2 seasons. What's your read on the title race this year? Seems to just be struggling with Gary. So, Gary, hold the line there for a second. We'll try and get you back up and running again. We'll go to Paddy Power from our sponsors, Paddy Power here. Paddy, how are you looking at the race for the title race then in terms of the odds?
Yeah, well, look, it's funny. It's everyone's calling it, isn't it? Like, it looks like a toss of a coin between City and Liverpool. Some pundits saying that City are a deeper squad, so they'll go on further. And they're actually odds-on favourites to 8-11 to go and win the league. Liverpool are 15-8. And it is, I mean, the fact that Liverpool haven't haven't done that much business in the off-season would maybe be a small worry for Liverpool fans, but they did win in a canter last year, and it kind of showed how important it was to get away quickly. So it probably is between those two. Maybe Chelsea, after spending all the dosh, will be proper contenders, but yeah, I mean, they're 9-1 shots, and United and Arsenal will probably flatter to deceive a little bit. Well, United might challenge, I guess. They're 14-1, so it does look. The odds would suggest it is between odds on Man City and Liverpool, but that's, I mean, you're not going to get rich predicting that, So I think there'll be a few surprises along the way, but I find it hard to see Liverpool. The gap will close, I think, between themselves and City. It's hard to see them getting beat, but at the same time, historically, only United really have dominated the Premier League. Haven't they? Have managed to dominate like a couple of seasons in a row, so it is quite difficult to back up winning the league. So it'll test their mettle, definitely, Liverpool.
Hard to see if we're going to get to a point either, Paddy, where teams are coming up to quite the level that both Liverpool and Man City have been at in terms of this being sustainable. 90-plus seasons back-to-back, particularly 2 seasons ago, both teams went almost perfect records. Liverpool go over the 90-point mark again in winning the title last season. Given particularly that they've only had 30-40 days off, even less time for Man City, given they were in the quarterfinals of the Champions League, it's difficult to see both City and Liverpool getting to that kind of points number again, I think.
That's a fair point, but at the same time, you got to think they've got probably a deeper squad than some of the other teams, some of the I guess certainly the new teams into the league and the mid-table merchants as well. But I agree with you. I think this year with the shorter run in, I presume they're going to start the season not quite at 100%. They won't be quite humming. So, say Klopp, for example, be happy enough. He'd be happy to get away with a win against a real proper danger team in Leeds. And the way the match turned out, you'd probably be happy to get away with the points there, because you can be sure they're running at 90% or 85%. It's like a racehorse getting ready for races later in the season. I think that's the way the big teams will certainly approach. And I agree with in the intro there. I think it'd be interesting to see how Man City go and see where they are in terms of their pre-season and that, because Liverpool showed last year that if you do get away, it could be hard to be pegged back, especially when you're one of the top teams that gets away. So, I mean, there's an opportunity for one of the lesser teams to try and just take a bit of a claim early doors, but yeah, I mean, I think the overall over the period of a long period of time during the season, I think obviously the deeper squad's going to probably win out. Yeah, we've got Gary Breen back with us now. Gary, your read on the title race then, is this as simple as City against Liverpool for the 3rd season in a row?
I think that will be the main focus. So we talked about the fact that Chelsea, Manchester United with their signings bridge that gap, but you're talking about being 30 points behind. That's an awful lot to do. The relentless nature of both Liverpool, City over the last couple of seasons, the consistency levels have been incredible. They really have. But with the investment that United have had, Donny van der Beek coming into midfield, the very fact that Chelsea have spent so much money as well suggests that they will be looking to bridge that gap. I think the owners will demand that off of those young managers, rookie managers as such at this level. But it's going to be a fascinating one. It really is. How quickly those guys bed in. Certainly, we saw a couple of them last night for Chelsea. I look at Timo Werner. I think he's going to be amongst the goals. I think he's going to continue to get into those dangerous areas. And if you then think about the quality that Chelsea have in that 10 area, they have a host of quality now with Pulisic, Havertz now as well, Mason Mount. They've got some real quality. They're big problems for both of Manchester United and Chelsea in terms of getting up to the level of Manchester City and Liverpool, is how strong they can be defensively, because there's still a vulnerability about both sides. Having said that, I'm looking at Manchester City. Can they bridge the gaps to Liverpool? And I think to do that, they're going to have to add to their centre-half possibilities there, because I think Nathan Ake's a good signing at £40 million. I genuinely do believe that, but I don't think he solves the problem they do have at centre-half, and that's not having that physical presence in a way that Van Dijk does for Liverpool.
Yeah, I wonder as well, Gary, whether Manchester City were waiting to see what was going to happen with the Leo Messi situation at Barcelona before they decided to spend more money, because they brought in Ferran, the winger from Valencia, and they brought in Nathan Ake, then have gone quiet. But the feeling would be that there's some more bodies needed in there, particularly when you consider David Silva has gone. There's talk that maybe one of Bernardo Silva or perhaps Mahrez could end up being sold. And Leroy Sané has left. I know he was injured most of last season, but he's not available now. City probably need another signing or two just to bulk out that squad.
Well, if you look at in terms of the quality they have going forward, even though the likes of Silva is going, you'd hope that Foden can replace him. And I would never worry about Manchester City in terms of going forward. I think they still got the best player in the Premier League in Kevin De Bruyne. And then the fact that they outscored Liverpool suggests that. But the difference in terms of winning leagues and being at that consistent best is how good you are defensively. We saw the transformation that Liverpool had just by getting Van Dijk into the building. And I think that City are going to have to try and get someone that presence. Listen, Laporte was a massive loss when he got injured. Of course he was, in a way that Van Dijk would be for Liverpool if it happened. But I think they need to thicken that area. I genuinely believe that, because too often you don't really want to see Fernandinho going back at centre-half. I think he's missed his quality in centre midfield, and in the role we play screening that back four is so important. So I do believe that they'll still do a bit more business, and certainly I think the priority will be to strengthen that defence.
End of call. We've got live coverage of Liverpool against Chelsea this Sunday afternoon. How do you reckon it's going to go? Liverpool, we saw stutter a little bit against Leeds, but got the business done. Again, Chelsea had to spend long spells without possession last night, but got a 3-1 victory against Brighton. What's your feeling, Enda, about this coming Sunday at the Bridge?
Well, based on the Brighton game last night, if you look at what Chelsea did in that game, Brighton actually dominated quite a bit of the possession for large parts of the first half, and large parts of up until about 10 minutes in the second half. They probably had the better of chances, probably created the more opportunities as well. So compare that to what Liverpool will do to what Brighton did to them. Liverpool will take their chances, they'll create better goal-scoring opportunities, and they like to start fast. And if Liverpool can start fast against Chelsea this weekend, they can get a couple of goals, because that defence still is vulnerable. Salah, if he's on the form that he was in the first week, we've seen that the reason that Chelsea brought in Chilwell is because Marcus Alonso doesn't have the legs to get up and down anymore, and that was one of the biggest weaknesses for Chelsea against Brighton as well. So if Salah's on the same form as he was in the opening week against Leeds, then I think that down the right-hand flank is where they can do them damage. Liverpool also do look vulnerable at the back, and if Werner is quite a good striker in the sense that he can really pull teams wide and drag them. If he can go out the left against Trent down the right-hand side of the Liverpool defence, and then cut in like he did against Brighton a couple of times, then that's where they can get their opportunity. So I expect there to be goals, definitely. I do think Liverpool will have too much quality this weekend, though.
Paddy, when it comes to goals, a lot's been made of the fact that Chelsea had the worst defence in the top 10 of the Premier League last year. They were leaky on set pieces, they were leaky on the counter-attack. That game at Anfield towards the end of the season, when Liverpool got in behind them, they carved them open. Can we expect plenty of goals at Stamford Bridge on Sunday?
I hope so. I mean, it was a pretty good start to the league anyway, wasn't it? But I hope we can. Obviously, Van Dijk is finished because he made a mistake, didn't he, against Leeds? So he's obviously forgotten how to defend. So, but funny. I mean, I think from a Liverpool perspective, first of all, I think Liverpool probably will be quite. They won't mind so much. I mean, Leeds are going to be as attacking a team probably as you're going to get in the league this year, with certain possession wise and everything like that. And they looked very dangerous. They'd be delighted to have Fulham themselves this weekend. But from a Chelsea perspective, yeah, I think not having the ball is going to be an issue massively against Liverpool because of the quality they have and the quality they have in midfield, and especially going forward quickly. So yeah, Liverpool have to be favourites. I think you're going to think think they're scoring going to at least 2 goals. So hopefully Chelsea will bang in a couple and it'll be another cracker of a game. But I think Liverpool will edge it in a high scoring one. So if Chelsea get beat easy, I think they're probably not going to challenge for the title this year. But if they battle hard, even if they lose by the odd goal, I think they might just have to take a bit of confidence from that. But I think Liverpool will expect to go here and get a result.
Yeah, Gary Breen, when it comes to that mistake by Virgil van Dijk for the Bamford goal last Saturday at Anfield, we were talking to Kenny Cunningham about it earlier. He was saying, look, this is one of these things. He has been so good at controlling the ball and flicks and tricks and everything over the last couple of years. It shows the confidence in his ability that he felt he could hook that ball and just turn around and play it himself as opposed to putting it back to Alisson. I would imagine this is just one of those rare mistakes. It's not going to lead to a drop-off in form in Van Dijk.
Oh no, and it's in terms of his quality, I do believe he's the best centre-half in the world, and I think that every centre-half can make mistakes. And you're right, he plays with such confidence, but that's because of the high standards that he has set himself. So it's always a difficult one because none of these teams have had a proper pre-season as such, and none of them are at the top of their game. So it's going to take time to get there. And it's not just about fitness, it's about your timing, how you receive the ball, how you pick up the flight of it. So all those things will get better, of course, but I'll be fascinated to see in terms of that game against Chelsea, in terms of how Werner likes to pull on that to that left-hand side, and whether or not he will get in situations against Van Dijk, because he's the one centre-half, even with a high line, that he can stay with flying machines. He really can. So I'd expect him to have to be at his best. I think he will be. I know I said about it takes a few games to get there, but I wouldn't be overly concerned about that for Liverpool.
Gary, just a quick one while we're on the Van Dijk mistake. How much of that is down to Van Dijk himself and how much of that is down to his teammates? Because surely that should have been communicated with him by either Alisson or Joe Gomez or Andy Robertson, that there was a man coming on there and he shouldn't have taken that touch in the first place.
Well, I think he's playing at such a high level. He's got that awareness. He knows what's happening around him. He'd have backed himself to execute that bit of skill. So I think it's a bit of both. You can always help as a centre-half. You get that information, even though you should really be looking after business yourself. So, listen, it wouldn't overly concern me. I know there's been a suggestion that he's kind of getting a little bit carried away with the stature he's got in the game now, and I can understand that a little bit. I think even if you speak to his coaches as a young player, the game seems to be relatively easy for him as a young player. His concentration levels weren't at what they should be, and then suddenly he comes down to the Premier League, goes to Liverpool, and he becomes everything that everyone hoped he would be as a young player in terms of that great physicality, that ability on the ball, how he impacts not only on the opposition but on his teammates. He elevates them to another level in a way that the likes of Roy Keane did for Manchester United all those years ago. So listen, I wouldn't be overly concerned about it. I think with a few more games he'll get back to those high standards.
And give me your take on Manchester United, because we haven't had a chance to talk about them a whole lot so far because they didn't play on weekend number 1. They've not made a huge amount of business. Bake is a huge signing for them to get in to bolster their midfield. We'll still wait and see where he plays, if it's going to be, say, him, Fernandes and Pogba, or whether a sitter in Fred and Matic is needed in that midfield too. What are you expecting out of Manchester United this year, Enda?
They need more consistency. I was looking at them, their start of the season last year, and it was one of the worst starts since the 90s. I think worst start since before Alex Ferguson's time. But then the second half of the season is where they really kicked on, and we've seen too much of this under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, is that they have purple patches for long periods of time and then they drop off. You sort of seen that drop off near the end of the season as well. So you're hoping that if they start better this season, then they will definitely finish with more points than they did last season. But they need more depth in that squad. I know there's a lot of conversation around transfer windows and how fans are getting desperate for teams just to sign players, but Man United genuinely do need more depth in that squad, and Solskjaer was pointing that out as clear as day to Ed Woodward and the board at the end of the season when he just wouldn't make substitutions because he was trying to send a message that they don't have the players to come on and make a difference when the likes of Greenwood's not playing well, or Martial if he's not scoring. They don't actually have these players to come off the bench, and they still don't. So I'm not really sure where they go from that. Van de Beek, yes, he's a great option to have. He seems to be a really good talent, but it's hard to see where he fits into the squad at the minute. I would have liked them to see them bring in a centre defensive midfielder because Matic doesn't have the legs for the full season to do that role. They probably need another left back, probably need another centre half. I don't think they're going to be quite challenging for the title yet, but they definitely are in a better position this year. You'd expect them to have the system in place now under Solskjaer. No more excuses for him. This is the year that they can really go out and prove what they can do. but they do need a couple of more players before the season starts.
Yeah, Paddy Power, you guys have them priced up in that kind of top 4 range. That's the feeling that they're going to be in the top 4, but it would take a remarkable season for them to be at the very top.
Yeah, I think so. And it's interesting to think it's very hard for Solskjaer in a way, because I mean, I think that the analysis there is just perfect behind it. But at the same time, they did manage to nick third last year. See, they got to keep improving, don't they? So maybe it's just a points thing that he has to start talking about that. But they're 14-1. They're fourth most likely to win it, behind obviously City, Liverpool, and Chelsea. But in terms of top 4, you would be expected there'd be a touch of odds on for top 4. Let's check here. They're 8-13 to finish top 4, so it is likely they get there. But I think that I guess United fans, depends how they start. United fans now will be coy enough, but if they do get a couple of big results in the bag, it'll be Ollie's driving the bus and all that kind of rubbish again. But it is what I love about it, just there what Enda was talking about there. I love the Premier League for that a manager in the Premier League will not bring on subs to make a point to the chairman of the stand. It's deadly. It's just great, isn't it? Like.
Gary Breen, Manchester United, what kind of season are they going to have?
Well, it's so difficult because at times they can look brilliant and then at other times look so vulnerable. And I certainly think if you're looking at, on paper, that midfield three of Pogba, Bruno Fernandes and Donny van der Beek, you can see the strengths in terms of going forward without a shadow of a doubt. But you'd be slightly concerned about on the turnover, out of possession, how they would be able to protect the back four, who Maguire's a real presence back there, but it can be situations where he's a little bit vulnerable. I'm not convinced about Lindelof in terms of that he gives you that physical presence, that reliability. So that's the major issue for me. Certainly those front three, when they're firing, there's so many goals there. So it's a difficult one. I'm also looking at that goalkeeping situation. That's one that's really intrigues me in terms of Henderson signing his contract. They're going to have both those goalkeepers, De Gea, in the building. De Gea's dropped way below the standards that he set himself in terms of being the best goalkeeper in the world about 18 months ago. So as soon as he makes a mistake, then it's going to be a lot of clamouring for Henderson to get his opportunity. But the reality is that being a goalkeeper for Manchester United is very different than being one for Sheffield United in terms of the pressure that you're under as such. And I was interested to see that obviously he signs his contract, Henderson, yet De Gea rightly gets the number one slot to start the season. But what really intrigued me as well is that Jordan Pickford's really struggled for England and certainly for Everton at times, and yet he gets a nod ahead of him for the national team, England. So I'm not sure that everyone's 100% convinced of Henderson, despite how good he has been at Sheffield United over the last couple of seasons.
And I wonder as well, Gary, if it gets to a scenario whereby Henderson is only getting a few cup games in, say, the EFL Cup, and maybe he might get the odd run in Europe late on in their Champions League group or something like that. If it gets to January and the European Championships are 6 months away, I wonder will Henderson push to try and get himself a loan deal to be playing football before the Euros? Because no guarantees he gets into the England squad if he's not playing.
No, exactly. And I think he was being quite bullish in terms of negotiating with Manchester United for this new contract. And I'm sure he'll have asked for some assurances in terms of whether or not it's a level playing field. Will I get my opportunity, or will I just be there as just nothing but the number two? I can't for the life of me see him signing that contract if he felt he was never going to get in at United. So he must back his ability to force his way in. But it will be fascinating to see how that situation develops, because I wouldn't be 100% convinced about Manchester United defensively, and certainly having a goalkeeper changed or not having one who's nailed down as your number one would be a concern, because that's not going to help that situation at all.
And Gary, your take on Arsenal, because an easy enough start away to Fulham, who again looked dodgy at the back last weekend, but a solid start. It looks like it's going to be Aubameyang's contract is going to be signed. They've brought in some defensive reinforcements for this season too. Are Arsenal well set for an assault at the top four this year?
Well, it's going to be difficult because of the quality that we said that Chelsea and Manchester United have brought in, but that's 10 points they've got to make up as well, Will. It's an awful lot, and the announcement now is that Aubameyang has signed his 3-year contract, which is great news, because in terms of how good he's been for Arsenal, it kind of just masks a little bit of how they're in the bottom half in terms of big chances created, and yet you think about all the goals that Aubameyang gets. So I have been so impressed with Arteta. I felt it was a massive job for him, and I know lots of people said, like, as a rookie boss, how do you get that job? But I do believe that we're seeing now in football management a more of a bespoke nature in terms of not necessarily your CV, whether it wants having one of those big jobs, but whether or not you're just a good fit for that particular club. We've seen it with Lampard at Chelsea, Solskjaer at United. We've even seen it with Southgate with England, to be perfectly honest. But Arteta is someone who's really impressed That was noticeable, the very fact that his title was changed from head coach to manager. It shows that him and Adu are getting more hands-on in terms of trying to drag Arsenal back where they think they belong. And it's been very noticeable in terms of him being at the club. The difference in terms of responsibility for those players, that they're all culpable. If they're not playing particularly well, they don't play. I think he's shown real leadership in that type of way, how he's dealt with Ozil. If you're not putting a shift in, you won't play. Guendouzi, who runs around, puts a real shift in, but lacks that positional discipline that was synonymous, really, with Arteta in his playing career at Arsenal and Everton. So I think that there's been some good signings. Gabriel, great debut in terms of coming in straight away, but there'll be harder challenges, as you quite rightly said. I mean, Fulham, and on the opening day, Arsenal put 9 goals past them home and away last time they were in the Premier League. So that was always going to be a tough one for Fulham. But they are definitely going in the right direction under Arteta. There's no doubt about it. And I think Arsenal fans, we talked about, Paddy was saying there about how supporters are suddenly thinking like they've cracked it. I think Arsenal fans are really getting carried away with Arsenal, feeling that, they're back on track. But it's still a massive, massive jump to make those 10 points up on Chelsea and Manchester United, who are going to get better themselves in their points tally.
And a call when it comes to the sack race. We were talking about this last weekend. David Moyes, particularly given West Ham's extremely difficult start, and they've got games against Spurs, Man City, Arsenal, Liverpool on the horizon between now and Halloween, starting with that derby against Arsenal this coming weekend. But Jose Mourinho has kind of snuck in odds-wise over the last few days. They lost their opening game of the season last Sunday against Everton 1-0. There's talk about dressing room unrest, leaks to the media about things not being rosy in North London. Is Jose Mourinho a reasonable bet, Enda, to be first man out?
He's not a crazy bet. I don't think he'd be the first man out. I stick by my earlier prediction of David Moyes, because they needed to get off to a win against Newcastle, because over the next couple of months they're not going to pick up many points at all, because West Ham seriously worry me in terms of the quality they've added. They've also got, people talk about Spurs unrest. West Ham have some serious unrest. I'm not sure if you've seen with the young player leaving the club, and then Mark Noble, the captain, coming out and tweeting, giving out about the board. There's talk about the changes at the highest level of the club, the owners of the club changing. So, I mean, if the owners change in the next couple of weeks, then is David Moyes' job safe? It's probably not. If you're looking for a club with the ambition that West Ham seem to have, but seem to lack the ability to get the right man in there to actually achieve what they want. But Jose Mourinho, he's not a bad bet. Myself and yourself and Colin Buick have been chatting about the All or Nothing Spurs documentary over the last couple of weeks on Team 33, and it doesn't seem like there's that much unrest. I know it is a PR job, but it doesn't seem like the players are against them too much so far. Maybe that isn't the case at the behind the scenes when it comes to Daniel Levy, but I don't know. Like I think Spurs will give him a couple of months anyway, at least, to see what he can do, and he can always use the excuse this time again that he doesn't have his players, even though he brought players into the club.
Season 2 of All or Nothing Spurs could be interesting if the cameras are still rolling currently from Amazon. Paddy, David Moyes, with your bookmakers, was installed as the favourite for the sack really since the end of last season, and it hasn't shifted a whole lot on that. The feeling seems to be he's a man under pressure, and once again it could be a case of he keeps the team up and then loses his job swiftly afterwards.
Yeah, poor old David Moyes. I mean, Jesus, one thing he's been consistent has been favoured for the sack, which is unfortunate for him. But he just seems to basically inherit these absolute, I can't even use the word on radio. But anyway, West Ham is a bit of a basket case, and all that stuff going on in the background, that can't be good in the dressing room. So he's got to be favoured, to be honest. And we've Scott Parker in a second favourite. I think it's a bit harsh, actually, because I'd imagine they're going to have a little bit more patience when they've just been. Although the last time they went up, they went straight back down, didn't they? So hopefully he might get a bit of time. Roy Hodgson's there at 11-2. He's a master at survival. He probably won't be the one. Jose could walk out himself. Maybe you get the bullet. Who knows? Slaven Bilic then is 14-1. Jose's 8-1, by the way, and then Dean Smith as well. I think Villa will give him plenty of time. He's 16-1, and after that, it's what I was looking at, actually, just in case. Imagine Fulham beat Leeds this weekend, which is unlikely, and then would Bielsa just storm out again? He's done that a couple of times, hasn't he? Just literally taken his ball and left. So maybe it's a small. He's 25-1. Maybe it's a small jump. But the one thing, just to tell you, the state of affairs, the way the youth are these days, it's 275-1 that no manager gets them this year. So that's obviously not going to happen.
No, you put €1 on that, you lose €1 is basically the odds on no manager to go in the Premier League by the end of the season.
And you lose it pretty quickly, probably as well.
Yeah. Gary Breen, give me your pick for Player of the Year then.
I don't think you could look further than De Bruyne again if he stays fit and healthy. I think he's a sensational player. There's a few players who you take so much joy going to watch. He's certainly one of them. Salah started very well again. Looks like he's got that real energy back, and I'll be really interested to see how Havertz does at Chelsea. That's one I'm looking at. I know it's a massive investment for a player so young, but this is a guy with 38 goals from midfield in the Bundesliga for the last couple of seasons. So that's a problem that Chelsea had. Too many teams were able to put the low block on, defend deep against them at home, especially like West Ham. Bournemouth, we've seen it, and they really struggled to break them down. He's the type of player who can do that. He can see a pass. So I think he'll be getting some great service into Werner. So, there's so many players there. You're really looking at it and thinking, listen, this could be a standout year for him. But as I said, Kevin De Bruyne, it would take some beating to finish above him in that accolade.
Okay, and give me your pick for Player of the Year then.
I said Bruno Fernandes. He probably won't get it because United aren't going to win the league. They never usually give it to a player who doesn't win. He might win Writers' Player of the Year, one of the fake awards that they make up every so often. So I think Bruno Fernandes will be stand out again this year for United. But in terms of that, you're looking at Kevin De Bruyne. He's starting to push his place for like one of the best centre midfielders to ever play in the Premier League without getting too hyperbole about it. He's one of the players, phenomenal to watch. Some of the passing, you could just, when you stumble across videos on YouTube of greatest Premier League goals, I think last year they were actually able to put together a 4-minute video of Kevin De Bruyne's best passes. So that's the kind of player he is. And as a centre midfielder myself, to a much lower level, watching Kevin De Bruyne is a joy. So I think he's going to be Player of the Year again.
Kevin De Bruyne says his inspiration is from Condra's and the call on a given weekend. Paddy, how are you pricing Player of the Year? I think people who had a punt on this had to wait quite a while because it was only just before the season began that Kevin De Bruyne was named as the PFA Footballer of the Year just a few weeks ago. But how are you pricing up Footballer of the Year for the coming year?
Yeah, funny enough, he's favourite, but he's 5-1 favourite, so he's certainly backable, I think, De Bruyne. Mo Salah's 11-1. Bruno Fernandes in between the two of them at 17-2. And the case has been made for De Bruyne there. But as a striker in five-a-side, whenever I play, I'm too lazy to go back. I think one of the stories that didn't get a mention really. One of the stories of last season was how close Danny Ings came to Golden Boot. And I just he's 100-1. If I found €1 on the ground, I might throw it on him just for.
He didn't even make the PFA Team of the Year. That was insane.
That's mad, isn't it? Yeah, no, it's mad. But so De Bruyne will most likely win it, but I'm putting money on Danny Ings at a protest.
Right, we're going into the closing stages here, and give me a top scorer pick for the year then.
Aubameyang.
Okay, simple as that.
Yeah.
New contract, happy out. Gary Breen?
Yeah, I think Aubameyang, but you see the way Leicester set up with Vardy, he'll get his goals, there's no doubt. You'd hope that Harry Kane and Aguero can stay healthy and bearing in mind the amount of chances that Aguero would be created for him. People are saying that Harry Kane's not the level he was and that he probably will find chances hard come by under Mourinho's Tottenham team. But I think it's difficult to look past Aubameyang, but I'd be interested, though, just to see how well Timo Werner does at Chelsea.
All right, my thanks to Paddy Power, to Gary Breen, and also to End the Call. That has been our Paddy Power half hour. Good luck if you're having a punt on the games this weekend. To finish out our OTB football special, I'll hand you over now to former Ireland international David Meyler, who has caught up with his ex-Sunderland teammate Wes Brown to chat about their time on the Weir and also Brown's experience at Manchester United.
So, guys, I'd like to introduce you to one of my former teammates. It is none other than Wes Brown. Wes, how are we?
Yes, Meyler. You okay, pal?
I'm very good, thank you. Geez, it's almost, 8-9 years ago since you signed for Sunderland and we became teammates. Do you look back with, good memories, fond memories of that time you had at Sunderland?
Yeah, I had a brilliant time, mate. Obviously, it was different to what I was used to, but the lads were brilliant. And it was, also when I look back now, it was good sort of being on the other end of it as well, because it was tough. We had some tough years there.
Yeah, no, definitely. I actually remember the day you came for your medical. I was back, coming back from one of my cruciate injuries, and you walked into the physio room and there you were, and I was there thinking, it's weird because I had seen you, on television and with Manchester United, which we'll get into in a bit, but, there you are in the flesh and you were just like, hiya mate, you all right, how's it going, I'm Wes and all that, and you have this idea in your mind of, these Manchester United players and these, England internationals, but then you were just so nice and so humble. It was incredible.
Yeah, just a good upbringing, mate.
Yeah.
No, I think you have to be like that. I think in football it helps a lot as well. That would have been my first day, I think, of him, right? And just getting to know everyone and being nice, and that's probably just my character, mate. If I'm being quite honest, I was like that at United, and I was, not going to change for Sunderland.
Yeah, and of course, you have an Irish legend that you played with for many years who comes with you to Sunderland. Of course, it's John O'Shea. Did you get into conversation before, kind of going, look, Brucey wants me to come to Sunderland, and you're like, oh, he wants me to come too, and it was a little, will we go together?
100%, Meyler, 100%. But the funny thing is, when I got there, when I seen you that day, he was supposed to be there. So yeah. I was snapping in my head a bit, thinking, is he taking the mick? But he then signed the next day, if you remember rightly. And he said another offer came in. I won't say for which club, but another. So he nearly went to this other club, and he was going to leave me hanging. But yeah.
Oh, so obviously, he didn't even text you, call you to say, Wes, I'm 50-50 now.
Yeah, I know we're sort of best mates as well. But at the same time, stuff happens. I was already in Sunderland. I was definitely going. I would have went regardless. And with Shazy would have had, I'm not sure where the club was, but it could have been a really good club, and he had to check it out, which is fine. But I got my way, don't worry, and he ended up signing.
I love the way you say, I won't name the team, but we're going back to 2011. It's 9 years ago. John is obviously now retired. He's a coach at Reading. It's not going to make much of a difference.
It's not, but it's his story to tell, innit? It's not mine.
Okay, well, I'm going to ring him after to try and get, what it was. But, Wes, you spent 5 years at Sunderland. You had 5 different managers. How did you find that? Which, obviously Steve Bruce is the one who signed you. You get in the door. You're there for he's there for a couple more months, and then he's gone. Martin O'Neill comes in. How did you find the transition through managers after being, at Manchester United with such an iconic manager for so long?
Yeah, it's hard because, like you said, I had one manager for many, many years. I knew Steve Bruce from when he was at the club. So obviously I signed for him. And like you said, after a few months, he leaves and Martin O'Neill comes. All managers, as you'll know, Meyler, they've all got different personalities. That's the first thing. You've got managers who are very talkative. You can go and see them, if there's any trouble, good or bad. And then there's other managers that are pretty quiet. They just want you to get stuck into your football. They don't really want you going to see them or stuff. So yeah, it was hard in the sense that we kept changing managers. Plus, we weren't getting the results we wanted. Especially when I thought when I signed, our team was pretty good. We had a decent team. I mean, we thought we were going to finish a bit higher. I think we finished 14th, maybe the first season, maybe a bit higher. And then, it just didn't quite happen. And I don't think it helps changing managers all the time. But at the same time, we weren't getting the results. So you couldn't really, argue with it.
I know you talk about the different personalities of managers. Obviously, I've played under Steve Bruce and Martin O'Neill for so long. But then you have, Paolo Di Canio, who seems to be this eccentric manager who's very, disciplinary, in his ways. You hear different stories of no ketchup, no this, no that.
Yeah.
How does a group of players go through that? And then to think how is he going to implement his styles when he's trying to cut down on so many different things that all you want to do basically is go out and perform and do well?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the training was really good. The training was good. It was intense. Now, the other stuff, that did happen as well. And I'm not saying it shouldn't happen. Listen, if the manager wants something to happen, I think slowly it should be guided in. But I think it was just pretty much straight. You're not now having this, you're not now having that, you're having that for a set meal, nothing else. And I think it was probably done not in the right way. It wasn't really explained. It was just, even at lunch, if the dinner would just come out or the lunch could just come out and you were eating that and that was it. It probably wasn't explained to us exactly what was going on. And I think if he would have done that, we would have understood it a little bit more. But yeah, it was changing a lot of things, completely changing the diet. And like I said, if he would have knew what he was trying to achieve, it would have helped a lot, and it would have gone a long way. But you know, he was a bit mad. He was crazy. You know, he was passionate, and he wanted to win. But at the same time, you know, these little things that were happening around just wasn't quite working. You know, it wasn't explained in the right way, so we understood it.
Yeah, there's no doubting he's very passionate. If, as many Sunderland fans who will watch this will remember, like when, you know, you beat Newcastle at St. James's Park. I remember I was in the crowd watching as a fan, and he ran down the touchline. There's the big celebration. He was a passionate guy. But then, you know, you've got Poyet, Advocate, so 5 managers. It's just, they're all so different. But I suppose that's the thing. When Sunderland weren't going through a good time, they just kept chopping and changing.
Yeah, the last few were brilliant. Poyet was brilliant. I mean, the way he wanted to play was a little bit how Man City play. Now, the problem is we're not Man City. You know, in training, you know, you can get away with it, you can pull it off. But yeah, I mean, his way of playing was nice, really. It was nice to watch, and if you got out, it was perfect. But I think in the games, because we were under so much pressure, that pressure got to us. And then when you are trying to play out from the back, if one mistake's happened, as you know, listen, if they score, your head's gone. It's going to be very hard now to get out of trouble. So, again, that didn't work. I mean, Charlie Otway was there as well. He was fantastic with us in training. But we probably didn't have the personnel to sort of get that done, you know. Listen, we've already changed the manager 3 or 4 times already. So, it was all, if it wasn't going to work, you knew that it was probably going to happen again. And then Dick comes in. He was brilliant. You know, he's managed some great teams over the years, and he sort of got us on a solid ground, and you know, we got some wins. We got some good players in, you know, but we always struggled to score, as you know, Meyler. We always struggle. You need a striker in the Premier League who's going to put the ball in the back of the net, and we always struggled in that way.
Yeah. So, Wes, 362 appearances, 5 goals, only 5, mind, but at the same time, 5 Premier League titles. So when you were 12 years old, you signed for Manchester United.
Yeah.
Like, what were your expectations? You're signing for one of the biggest clubs in the world. You're thinking...
I was 12, I don't know.
Yeah.
Honestly, when I was 12, mate, I only just started playing for a Sunday League team. I didn't even play... obviously, I played on the street, but, you know, I didn't play any organised football at all. So that's all I wanted to do. You know, I was pretty good at most sports, like I suppose sporty people are. But football was always in the back of my mind. That's what I wanted to do. And, you know, I know nowadays probably getting on a team at sort of 10, 11 is pretty late. But that's what I did. And, you know, things moved pretty quickly from there.
Yeah, well... Like, I need to, like, whenever a young boy comes through at Manchester United, I imagine the conversations even to this day, they've got to highlight the class of 92. You know, they was just so iconic. But were they a huge inspiration for you of lads who'd come through from a young age? They've got the Nevilles, Beckham, Giggs had obviously come a little bit before them, but Button, Scholes. Like, you must be looking at them, watching them train daily, aspiring to be like them to get into the first team.
Yeah, of course. I mean, they started to play when I was still at school. I mean, I was watching them on the telly when, 14, 15, 16. And, you know, when you are that age, you don't think it's going to happen to you. You know, you're wishing it is. But you don't think it's going to happen to you. But, you know, hard work. I always tell people hard work, commitment. You've got to sacrifice. Is people don't really put that in the window, but you have to sacrifice quite a lot. But like I said, I trained hard. Obviously, I knew I was good at football, but being a good footballer doesn't necessarily, you know, get you there. You have to work and do things to the extreme, and that's what in my mind I just want to try my best. You know, if it's not good enough, it's not good enough. But you know, luckily I was working hard and I got a chance. But watching them boys, I just knew that, you know, if I can impress the manager and the coaching staff, that I might get a chance, because, you know, Man United at the time was a club where they did bring youngsters in. You know, even if it's, listen, I could have played my debut and had a beast. I always tell people this. Might have had a beast, probably not would have had another chance for a good few months, but luckily I played well. And then the gaffer kept giving me more and more chances. But, you know, I do feel like at Manchester United, if they can see talent and they think you've worked hard and you're good enough, they will give you an opportunity.
Now, you've obviously touched on the gaffer, who, of course, was Sir Alex Ferguson. How big was he for you? And obviously, look, he's an iconic manager. He's arguably one of the best of all time. There's no doubting that. But how big was he for you?
He was brilliant. I mean, you know, especially coming from where I come from, I didn't really understand the world properly. He helped me there quite a lot. You know, he told me what he wanted me to do. He told me what he needed from me. You know, my mum and dad brought me up really well. So he had no problems on the politeness side and stuff like that. But he always gave me encouragement, and, you know, he made it very simple. I think that's one of his, what he was genius at. You know, he could spot your talent and make you do it, but very simply explain it to you what he wants. And, you know, it's not complicated. For instance, Wes, mark him today. That's all I want you to do. Don't give him a touch. That is all I would need. He didn't tell me how to do it. You know, and I think he had that certain way with players, and everyone's different. So he'd probably approach it, maybe Shazy, he might approach it in a different way, you know, but he worked out everybody's personalities very, very early doors, and, you know, mentally that helps everyone.
Now, there must have been, at some stage, a few telling offs, a few hairdryer moments, as they call them. Did you have any from? Huh?
Only a couple. I had loads, mate.
Yeah, and any that, you know, obviously stand out in your mind that you think, like, you're on the pitch, a ball comes back, you know, you're trying to play out, or you get a little bit excited and you go on a little dribble and you lose the ball and you can see the goal. Were you thinking in the back of your mind, oh no, when I get into the change room, he's coming straight for me?
Yeah, do you know what's funny? Do you know the ones I always thought I'm getting it at half time, I probably didn't get?
Yeah.
This is truth. And then there was a couple of times, I remember one time at Leeds, he absolutely come for me. Full force. I actually thought I played okay. He was at the road as well. I actually thought I played well. I thought I'd come in. It was 0-0, and I was just thinking, right, okay, we've kept a clean sheet. And he just said, "Where's blah blah blah, sloppy, da da da." But I always remember going out and playing a lot better the second half. But what was funny about it is I remember my friend Mark Wilson, he was a year older than me, a midfielder. He come up to me after the game and said, "Do you remember when the gaffer was shouting at you?" He walked round the corner in the dressing room and said, "Oh, he played better now," and started laughing. So the gaffer was clever. He was very clever. You know, I was one of them probably characters that if he shouted at me, I would play better. I would make myself play better. And you will probably know people who get shouted at or are telling off and they can go under. Do you know what I mean? And they don't really perform. But yeah, he did it to me quite a lot.
But that just shows the testament to his managing skills, where, you know, he knows that he can come at you in one way. I imagine there's certain types then that were in that changing room, like that he has to lay off. But yeah, obviously for this, I've been doing a bit of reading and researching on you, Wes, and he actually came out with a statement that you were the most natural defender Manchester United had produced for years. Like that is, if you think about the players going back, we touched on Steve Bruce, back to the early 90s when you had like Dennis Irwin, Paul Parker, Gary Pallister, Steve Bruce, all the way through. Like that's a huge statement, and you know, for someone. Go on.
Yeah, it is, and sometimes, you know, it gets told me a lot, that one. But you know, they asked me, what does he? You know, I mean, it's brilliant that the manager said that. I honestly think that when he said it, you know, like I said before, I was a player that the manager could just ask me to do something. Now, he wouldn't ask me how to defend or I want you to do this and do that. He would just let me get on with it and do it. And I think that's what he means by the natural. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does.
Especially when I was younger, you know, he never taught me how to defend. He just used to let me go out and do it. And I think that's what he means when he says that.
Okay.
Well, that makes...
It does. It makes complete sense. But either way, if it is your way or the way that I've taken it, it's still a huge compliment from someone who's... Yeah.
Of course it is, but you know, every game I played for Man United, I always tried my best, and I think that's part of it as well. But yeah, it's a nice thing to say about someone.
Now, you're obviously playing in this Manchester United team. I can't not bring him up because he was my favourite footballer when I grew up. And obviously I know a little tale, but Roy Keane, how big was he, you know, as captain of Manchester United for you as a player, a teammate, you know, someone who sorts out your contracts, which we can get into?
Yeah.
You know?
He's the man, mate. He was the man. He was a born winner, I would say. You know, obviously I've got there. He's already been there for many, many years. He's now the captain. You know, and he's got expectations and he wants the best out of everyone. And, you know, at the time, Man United were, you know, winning quite a lot. And, you know, he's now got the armband. He has to keep that going. And it doesn't matter whether you was, you know, you just got bought to the club or you was a young lad. The expectation is, first of all, you've got to work hard and do the basics in a football game. And, you know, that's what Roy Keane does. You know, yes, we know these other attributes you've got, but, you know, he focuses on the basics as well. So, listen, I understand it completely. If I'm not running and he thinks I can run harder, he will tell me, you know. But these games when, you know, people always take not the bad things, but the snaps that Roy Keane does. But, you know, so many times he would compliment you at half-time walking off, you know, keep on going, brilliant, son. Little things like this that obviously people don't talk as much about. But he was fantastic and, you know, he was a role model. You know, that's how, you know, he probably would have took that, especially looking at Brian Robson when he was coming through. You know, this never say die attitude. And he expected it from everyone. And I loved it. I thought it was brilliant.
No, I fully agree with you. But obviously there's the famous story that, you know, obviously your contract was up for negotiation. And I believe Roy Keane and was it Gary Neville have gone in for contract talks on behalf of Wes Brown.
That's true, yeah. Did you know what? This was early on in my career, though. This was probably my second contract. Obviously, I signed when I was 17, and it was the one after that, so it was like 20. Probably just after the treble season. And I remember just going up, and I said, listen, I'm going to have a word with Gaz. I had a word with Gaz, and he said, listen, you know, I want Keno to look at it. And yeah, Keno was brilliant, and you know, for that one, sorted everything out. Fantastic. Listen, don't get me wrong. I didn't go up to him every day saying, Keno, what's happening?
It wasn't as if training had finished, like, and you're walking in going, Roy, have you been up to see the manager there about my contract or whatever? But that just shows you the type of person he is, that a lot of people are quick to, you know, pull on the negativity stuff or whatever, or the negative stuff, should I say. But, you know, for him to, you know, put his arm around you and say, look, I'll help you out. Because he thought highly of you at that stage, to then go in on behalf of you, to represent you, to get you the best deal that you could get.
Yeah, I mean, it was brilliant. And obviously I didn't know how he would take it, you know, but when I look back now, you know, I'm only just asking for his help, and he was brilliant with it, along with Gaz. But yeah, he said, yeah, don't worry, we'll have a look at it and get it sorted for you, because, you know, it needs to be right. And that's the other side of Keno that people don't see. You know, I probably wouldn't have gone up to Keno at the beginning. I went up to Gaz because just not sure. But he was absolutely fantastic.
No, you're right. So we need to get into this, Wes. 5 Premier League titles.
Should
2
be 8.
champions. Should be 8.
Not played enough games. I played 9 one season and needed 1 more.
Oh, wow. Should be 8, though. So obviously you just highlighted you didn't play enough games in 1 season. What are the other 2?
Oh, the same. I think I played 4, which I'm not that one, but there was one where I played 8 or 9 games. I scored 1 as well. But the rules changed, by the way, Meyler. How many do you have to play?
No, technically the rule is 5 games. I think when you would have started out...
Another 2, mate, if that's the case. But yeah, officially it's 5, mate.
Well, if you go back to when you started out, I believe, somebody would obviously correct me, but I believe it was 13 games, and then it got changed to 10, and now it's at 5.
Yeah.
So you say there, there's 2 seasons that you don't have enough games. What's the third one?
Same thing. No, same thing, mate. There's just not enough. I played in the season, but just not played enough.
Okay.
Listen, 5's good enough. I'll take 5, mate.
5 is incredible. Do you know?
Yeah, I was there other ones, don't worry. Just, I just didn't play enough, and that was the rules at the time. So, that's how it goes.
Yeah, well, if you look at, Liverpool and Man City, which, we'll talk about in a little bit, but, Liverpool have waited 30 years for the Premier League title. Man City have won a couple over the last few years, but, you've got 5, and, of course, you have 2 Champions Leagues. You're one of 3 players to play in both,
Yeah, I don't know what to say. Listen, my first full season was a treble. Now that's the standard in my head that I'm thinking has to keep going every year, year in, year out. And, that it was such a high standard that, even when we used to finish second, Meyler, we were devastated. If we got beat in a cup final, we'd be devastated. If we lost one league game, if we were doing really well, and we were still in first, pretty much fine. We're devastated. It's just the high standards that the manager wanted and the players wanted as well.
Oh, well, look, Manchester United is renowned for winning the Premier League title. Anywhere second down is unacceptable, Like you said, you should have had 8 Premier League titles. Giggsy, of course, is 13.
Yeah.
Do you think over the time the club, well, it hasn't. Would you say it's been a bit of a failure in the Champions League?
Not really. We've got... Listen, when you get to finals, which we did do quite often when I was still there, we got to 3 other finals. Obviously, the one in Moscow, one in Rome, and one at Wembley.
Yeah.
Now, when we get in the final there, it's hard. You beat Barcelona in 08 semi-final.
Yeah.
But you can see that they've already got this unbelievable team. The couple of years after the add-ons that they bring, and then, like we said, we get them in the final both years, and we just didn't have enough. It's horrible because you've not won it again. You're the second best team in Europe, but that's not good enough. Do you know what I mean? But we had the squad there to do it. If you look at our squad, it was phenomenal, the players that we had. But we just couldn't quite get past that team. That probably will be, as time goes on, will be said to be one of the best teams ever produced, that Barcelona team. And, we were just a touch behind them, which is a shame, because to get to that many finals in so many years is an achievement in itself.
Yeah, because you're looking at, what was it, 08, 2010 and 12, was it? To win one, as you said, you beat Barcelona in the semi-final.
Yeah.
And then that team comes through, those players grow and build and get better. And then, look, they dominated world football for the next 3 years. You even look at Spain winning the Euros in 2008, the World Cup, and then the Euros again.
Yeah.
The big thing is always, which we'll get into, is there's always this debate of which is the best Premier League team. Now, this Liverpool team, obviously, were so dominant last year. But first and foremost, I'll start with you. The 99 treble winning team, or the 2008, double winning team?
See, if you ask the younger generation, they'll always go 08. But believe me, to win that treble, it's different material, it's different league to actually do it. It's nearly been done by a few clubs, but you just can't quite get there. In 08, we got beat in a semi-final. Semi-final against Portsmouth. Now, we battered Portsmouth and we should have won the game, but we didn't. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And listen, there's all sort of things that come into that. A bit of luck, a bit of, I don't know, maybe something from the referee. You get a decision that wasn't yours or whatever. But, for the 99, especially back then in the league, you still had 5 subs. Champions League, you had 7. The strikers, I look at the 4 strikers we had, the midfield, the defence. You can't beat it. I was there, I remember it. It's very hard for me to go anywhere else. You know what I mean? And I had this discussion once before, and we put all the unbelievable teams in, the Vincent Bulls, Mourinho's, I think the first one. Obviously, Liverpool weren't there yet because
Man City.
That was
the Man City team.
with the Man City team. And you know what? There was a player from every club, and they all said the 99 treble season, because on paper it's I'm not saying it's easy, but it's there, it's doable. But obviously being involved and looking at it, I mean, it's going to be hard to repeat, I'm not going to lie. And I know other teams do it in other leagues, but we're talking about the Premier League.
No, it's definitely there's a reason why it's only been done once.
Yeah,
you look at Man City have dominated the Premier League until obviously Liverpool, but they've never been successful in Europe. Then you look at Liverpool, who've always done well in Champions League. Or albeit you can say last year they were unlucky to lose, the Premier League title by a point, but they still haven't won the FA Cup. And it's always a big thing, and I kind of agree with you that the younger generation who remembered the 0-8 team, but like the 99 team, as you said, the 4 strikers of Cole, Sheringham, York, who am I missing? Solskjaer. Then you have the midfield of Keane, Scholes and Butt. You've got Giggs, Beckham, Blomqvist. There's just, and then you go into the back 4. It's just such an incredible team, and I think people are drawn to 08, for the Tevez, Rooney, and of course Ronaldo. It's a big toss-up, but you're one of, like I said, 3 people. There's you, Giggsy, and Scholes have played all the way through, and I would value your opinion more. Like, of course, if you ask Rooney, he'll probably say 08, or if you ask Nicky Butt, he'll say 99, because they were those teams, but you played in both.
Yeah, well, honestly, I'm telling the truth. And obviously, I didn't play in the 99 final, I was sub. But being there, I remember how stressing it was, even once we win that semi-final, which was, again, one of the best games I've ever watched against Arsenal, when Giggsy scores that famous goal. It was probably the most nerve-wracking thing that I've ever watched. But then once it happens, and listen, in that final, you can ask anyone, we could have been 2-0 down easily. And if they get the post, it comes back into Schmeichel's hand, crossbar. And then, something special happens at the end. And that feeling I've never felt ever again, Meyler. Ever. Don't matter what I've won. It's just not the same. And I'm gutted because I got that too early.
I know. The bar was set so high with the treble-winning season.
Yeah, so high. But like I said, for me, for anyone to even speak about teams like that, they all have to have won the same things. And at the moment, that's not happened.
No, definitely. Now, I touched on Solskjaer, who's obviously a striker in 99, scores, famous goal. He's obviously the Manchester United manager now. I know you'll be still wrapped up in it all and you'll still be keeping close contact and what have you. How do you think he's gotten on, in his time as Manchester United manager?
Yeah, well, I think it's all it's to see, really. I mean, he started off very well. And then it was a big dip, wasn't there? Big dip where, we just couldn't get any wins. The players didn't look as fit as maybe they should have been. And then we started last season. And at the beginning you're thinking, are we going to get in top 4? And you know what? Not many people would have said, I think that they're not going to do it. So, and again, there was games last season where you can see that you need players, I think. But listen, he will know that a few players stepped up as well. He's brought some young lads in, obviously Mason and Brandon. But you could still say you needed players. And then obviously you get Bruno in. Just before we brought Bruno in, there was a little dip. We'd win a game, then we'd lose or we'd draw. And, and you can see this, the aim was to get into top 4. It was Leicester's aim, it was Chelsea's aim, obviously Arsenal's aim, Tottenham's as well. And Sheffield United were there for, a good period of time as well, just, battling it out. But, he got the lads going and eventually we got there. I think once he brought Bruno, I don't think anyone expected the impact he would bring to the team, if I'm being quite honest. And I mean, all around the Premier League, he just sort of lifted everyone. And eventually we got into that top 4. But I think, the signings he has done, I think they've been good. I don't think you can really question them. Dan James, I didn't think Dan James would play as much at all anyway. Coming from Swansea. Maguire would play, Wan-Bissaka would play. And there's been times, when they have made mistakes, and I always say to people, should they be making mistakes? Well, everyone makes a mistake. You don't want to be known as a player or a team that keep making mistakes, but it's going to happen at some point. But ultimately, they've been pretty solid. I think the partnership and the defence, they've got on well. The front three have been firing. I think the problem is when one of them's not in. Martial, Rashford, Mason. I think when one's taken out, the system has to change a little bit. And I think that's where we've probably not got the personnel to sort of fill it in. But, we've brought Donny now, and we'll see where he fits in. But hopefully we get some more signings because we need a bigger squad.
Now, I just wanted to touch on your player of the season for Man United last year was, in fact, Tony Martial.
Yeah.
Do you think he can hit the heights again and almost not regain his form, but keep that level of consistency going? Because look, we've seen glimpses over the last few years. If you look back to his debut against Liverpool, when he carved Skirtle inside out, I think that's what Manchester United fans are desperate for, him to hit that consistency on a regular basis. Do you think he can do it?
I don't know. I hope so. Because that's the big question now. Listen, if I would have thought if Rashford wouldn't have got injured, I think I said Rashford probably might have got it for me because near the end he was up there. But, Martial, he stepped up a level. He stepped up to that level everyone's seen glimpses of every now and again. And he was doing it every game. He's smiling. He's getting at play. You could see defenders being a bit wary now because of dropping off when he's running at them. But he's putting the ball in the back of the net. Big difference from probably a year ago. And he's doing it with consistency.
Do you think that, look, we all knew that Bruno Fernandes was a good player. If anyone had watched any, Europa League or international football, you'd have seen that. But him signing in January transformed that club in the sense that when he came in, he just elevated everyone, that they went on levels and he took on kind of a hidden role as a leader. I think he's one of those that demands top level, but he's the one who's setting the bar himself. And do you think his impact from January onwards was huge?
100%, mate. It was weird because obviously we knew that he was a good player. But there's a lot of good players that come Man United and they don't, give you that top level for a good few months, just the impact of, really big club, the expectation. And then this guy just comes in and goes, his focus, it was unbelievable. All right, you know what, it's like he was saying to himself, this game, I'm going to do this one on my own because just to let everyone know that they need to be on this level. He was doing really good things. And I think the other players I've looked at it, and you know what it's like. If you play with good players, you play better. I don't care. If you play with good players, the best will come out of you. I know players that have been on, not so good teams, and I'm thinking, and I know he's better than this, but mentally he's gone a little bit, and he needs a bit of help just to lift him up. His confidence has gone, but when someone comes in and brings this confidence, and then you're saying to yourself, okay, I like this. This is good. This is going well. Let's get on his page. You would have seen it before though, but it does happen.
Yeah,
he's sort of done that for Man United.
It's definitely when they come in and they start training, they're training so well. You're kind of like, okay, now I understand why the club, we're desperate to sign this fella.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I'm talking about signing. Do you think Manchester United will sign Jadon Sancho?
I hope so. I like him. And yeah, they probably are arguing over money. Whether it's with the situation that's happening all over the world or something else, it probably will be that. But I just think the way Ollie's going with his signings, the young players he's bringing in, he fits in nice. He fits in perfect. We have got 3 players that, we had at the end of the season, with young Greenwood being one of them. But to bring him in as well, I think you're now looking at 4 players there where you can say, any three of them could play at any point. You could probably move a couple into a different area. But I just think the three, they would be, he's a young player, he's talented, he's got pace, he can score, assist. And he's a player that opponents would be scared of. And that's what you need in your team, in your squad.
Yeah, but it's also like Mason Greenwood, phenomenal player, phenomenal young player, I should say, really. But it's almost if they were to bring him in, they could use Greenwood the right way rather than just throwing him in at the deep end and saying, away you go, and just play, obviously 38 games and, whatever comes, and just rather than burning him out too early, kind of filter him in so that he then establishes himself. By the time he hits 21, he's 100 games under his belt and he's ready to go.
Yeah, totally agreed. I mean, when he first come in, Mason, he wasn't in quite a lot. He'd play, he'd come on for a bit and then go off. He would have never started, always come on maybe a bit longer. But the problem was he kept scoring. He kept scoring when he was, which is good. Yeah. But and then eventually, I think it got to the point where you sort of have to play him because we know we still needed to win games. But he's such a young lad that you are right. I think it's, at the beginning, the way Ollie was doing it, I think was perfect. And, you don't want to tire him out. You don't want to, especially early on in the season, drain him and put, and put pressure on him in that way. You just want to bring him on, I don't know, 1-0, 2-0 up, 3-0 up, let him do his thing. But like he has been doing, but yeah, I mean, to get that sort of third, I'm going to call them three strikers, the third, an extra striker on to help them three, is something that I think Ollie knows he needs.
Now, we've got to talk about, Liverpool, Man City, who've been dominating, Liverpool last year, Man City for the few years before that. Obviously, you're grow up a Manchester United fan, you're a Manchester United legend, you've won so much of them. How do you feel seeing those two clubs at the top end of English football and not seeing your beloved United?
Yeah, it's different for me.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're talking about, we'll start with the City team first. I mean, you're talking about a fantastic team with quality, and yes, they started from scratch and sort of and build the way up. But I mean, any footballer would understand that you see a good team when you see one. And first of all, the City team was that. And deserved everything that they got, really. I mean, they dominated for a good 3-4 years. Great players, and then obviously they did swap managers here and there, and then Pep came in, and we all knew what Pep was like from being at obviously Barca, Bayern Munich. We knew what he would sort of bring to that City team, change him again the way they play, and sort of playing that sort of Barcelona style. And then the Liverpool team, listen, as soon as I know you buy Van Dijk and Mane, I'm thinking, oh my God. Do you know what I mean? Because they are quality players. And I think Liverpool have always missed that centre-half. That dominant centre-half that, it will only take a month or two for other teams to understand that this is not going to be an easy game. And I think, obviously, he's brought that. But Klopp's been fantastic with his signings. I mean, Robertson, Arnold, two players that play really high up, but obviously contribute to a lot of the goals that Liverpool score. And then you've got the front three. Firmino, who for me does a fantastic job in his position. You can half say he's not bothered about the limelight. He will just play his role perfectly and let Salah and Mane, do the individual stuff. And he's got a fantastic team there. Obviously, Jordan Henderson, young lad that come from Sunderland, your mate. He's gone to. He's obviously gone there. He's worked hard. He's committed. Got the captaincy, and been absolutely brilliant. So listen. I will never hammer a good team because I've been in many. I've been in probably 3 different squads that have won stuff, and I can see that them 2 teams that you just mentioned are definitely up there because not just by quality but mental strength and the way they go about the games.
And to finish, Wes,
Why did you laugh? Why did you laugh when I said Jordan?
My mate. Because everyone just says that to me, goes, oh, he's your mate. No.
Yeah, but he's your mate though, innit? So what's the matter?
There's no problem. It's just I wasn't expecting you to go, your mate.
Yeah. Sorry, man.
It's like when I say Shazy, I'll say, oh, it's Wes's mate.
Exactly. I wouldn't be bothered.
Yeah, no, I just didn't expect you to say it. But, Wes, to wrap up, who's winning the Premier League?
Oh, even being honest, it's got to be between Liverpool and City. For the simple fact that, City Liverpool will want to retain a title. Not a lot of signing being done from Klopp. But I still feel like, even after watching that first game at the weekend, tough game against Leeds. I thought Leeds were really good as well, by the way. But, sometimes you can see the quality come out. And yes, they let 3 in. But when you've got players like that up front who can score goals, especially the way Salah can, they're always going to be in the hunt. And obviously that they will want to retain the title as well. I think Chelsea have spent a lot of money. A lot of money. And I'm expecting them to be brilliant. And I just don't know if that's going to work as well as, as they think it is. Because the expectation for them now is massive. I mean, they've spent to actually win the Premier League. And I don't know if that, if they've got enough and so early on to do that. City will always be there. And United, again, if they sign players, they will challenge in different areas. But, I mean, it's for Liverpool to lose in the sense they were so good last year, the points tally that they won it by. But, as long as they don't take the foot off the gas, because I've seen teams do that as well. When, you've won a league and then you sort of ease off. If anything, they've got to play even harder this year and work harder, because teams, if they've stepped the foot off the gas, teams will get goals here and there against them.
Oh, well, I was going to ask you your top 4, but considering that you rattled off Man City, Liverpool, Chelsea and United, it's pretty...
No, you forgot Arsenal.
I thought you were just going to dismiss them because they were the first 4 that came to your head.
I am going to... They are the first 4, but if Arsenal will... I don't know why, I just think Arsenal will do unexpected things this season for some reason.
Did you watch them against Fulham?
Yeah, I love Willian, you see. I love him. And against Fulham, listen, I've probably predicted Fulham to go straight back down. And I know that's bad, but for obvious reasons, you have to stay in the Premier League, you have to get really lucky or spend. And I just can't see how Fulham, especially after watching that as well, are going to get goals and, not concede against some of the talent that's in the Premier League.
Yeah. You see, I know you're talking there about, Fulham, you need to spend, but on the flip side, that 2 years ago, they spent whatever it was, 100+ million and went straight back down. So it shows you how difficult it is to not only buy the right players, but they've got to have the right, characteristics, good personalities, buy into what the team, the club is about. It's just so difficult.
It is difficult, Ryder, and like you just said, it is about the right balance. You could buy a player and it could be an absolute idiot, if you know what I mean. Yeah, but it can happen though, can't it? It can happen.
100%.
You've seen it, I've seen it. You can buy, it just doesn't fit in at all, being a nuisance, disrupting everything. And that's, so I can completely understand what you're saying.
Well, Wes, I'd like to thank you for today. It's great to talk to you, great to see you. Look after yourself and we'll keep in touch.
And you, pal. See you later, mate.
See you later, buddy.
OTB Football Special. Thanks to all the guests who've joined us on our Paddy Power Off the Ball Football Special on this afternoon. You can watch everything back on our OTB Sport YouTube channel, or you can get the podcast on the OTB Sports app and on our podcast network. If you've missed any of the chat from this afternoon, you'll be able to hear back the best sections later on Off the Ball from around about 7:30. We'll speak to you then.